If you can hear me. And shining faces?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me open a regular city council meeting agenda for the City of Pearland, Texas, for Monday, May 18, 2020. And it is at least 6:30. And this is being videoed by telephone and video conferencing. And I want to welcome all of you here tonight. If you please rise, we'll have an invocation tonight by Councilmember Little, and Councilmember Moore will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mayor. Bow your heads, please. Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight, and we ask your blessings on members of council, the mayor, and all the staff members. And we ask you bless our first responders, keep them safe, bring them home each evening to their families. We ask that the city, the state, the country, and the world continue to recover from this virus. And we ask that you would continue to bless this great country. In Jesus' name, amen.
Okay. Councilmember Little? Councilmember Moore?
I'll do it, Mayor.
Yes.
I pledge to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll go ahead and do the Texas. Sorry, my mic was off. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Station in place. Let us move to the next item, which is item number 3, which is roll call and a quorum. I'll do a formal roll calling at this point, and we'll do a certification of attendance. Councilmember Little?
Present, Mayor.
Councilmember Alondo?
Present.
Councilmember Cabon?
I'm here.
Councilmember Moore?
I'm here.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Yes, sir, Mayor, I'm here.
Councilmember Perez?
Present, Mayor.
Councilmember Owens? Owens is here. I didn't turn his mic on.
Yeah, I'm here.
You're here. Okay. Madam Secretary, I certify a quorum that will be available for tonight's meeting. Moving in our agenda to item number 4, which is citizen comments. Mayor Pro Tem Little, would you present this item?
A clock on your screen. If not, I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds left. State your name and address before you begin speaking on your topic. First speaker is Jimmy Davis.
I'm speaking on behalf of the Pearland Waterborne Discussion Group. I think we should get 5 minutes.
We're going to limit it to 3 minutes tonight. We've got a long agenda.
Okay, interesting. All right, Jimmy Davis, 5004 Commsville Street, Pearland, Texas. Honorable Mayor and Councilman, first let me express appreciation for calling an independent audit of our financials. I was pleased to discover that an RFQ was put out last week, due back at the beginning of June. I, like many residents, look forward to the result of the audit. On March 23rd, law firm Olson & Olson, who had been hired to investigate various concerns involving the city's billing procedures for water and sewer, presented a report to the City Council. They report that by the end of fiscal year 2019, there's an outstanding $8.7 million due to the city. The law firm spoke to 14 current and former city employees as well as one auditor. The report documents statements from many personnel, but notably there's not a single statement attributed to the city manager. The reports confirm that the direction to standardize meter read dates came from the city manager's office, according to John Branson, was communicated to staff after he had a conversation with the city manager. The report indicates the city was concerned about significant fluctuations in bills in July 2018, and the city manager's office mandated that they will make the change. Senior administration directed it to staff, and staff implemented it, and they confirmed that there was no formal follow-up with senior administration regarding the implementation of the change. The report documents a perceived culture by many non-senior administration employees that senior management does not want them raising concerns. Rather, they are just supposed to implement the directives of senior management, not provide their own opinions. The report indicates that it is difficult to keep quality, experienced billing staff long-term because their jobs are highly stressful and morale is low. The revolving door personnel in and out of that department, including Ms. Parker, asking to be reassigned shortly after stepping into her role, may be attributable, at least in part, to this culture. The report indicates that the utility billing managers and finance director indicate they ask for additional staff, but they don't receive enough. And the report indicates we don't have quality experienced staff because the compensation for the positions at the time was not enough to attract an experienced utility billing management candidate. That department, as of today, is still understaffed. It's notable that we're now hiring a new budget officer, so apparently a city manager, deputy city manager, assistant city manager, director of finance, and 2 assistant director of finances on top of all the other directors can't handle the task, so we need another senior manager. I only wonder how many utility billing staff could be hired in lieu of this budget officer.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. The next speaker is Maria DeCiccio.
Yes, sir. My name is Maria DeCiccio. My home address is 3202 Wild Turkey Lane, Pearland, 77581. If council approves all of the agenda items tonight, the city will spend another $4.7 million. That's on top of the millions that have been previously approved since COVID-19 has started shutting down businesses and putting people out of work. Bankruptcy filings are on the rise and are expected to continue. People are losing jobs. As of to be tone deaf, the government is raising the burden of property taxes through escalating property values that were determined before COVID. The pandemic is an economic snowball that should be freezing spending, hiring, and not speeding it up. How confident are y'all in your decisions that will be made that they will not negatively impact the lives of those you all are supposed to represent? It seems that your priorities as councilmen are not straight. Spending needs to slow down in a huge way. I'm sure many of you have had to readjust your spending at home, just as I've had to, and many other city residents of Pearland. The city needs to tighten its belt on its spending, not spending $500 per bar stool or a fire station. I'd like to see a workshop where the public is invited to see how the anticipated impact of COVID is to Pearland. Also, I'd like to know who on council is advocating and reaching out to leaders in Austin to stress the rollback of the current tax appraisals. Other government leaders are sending letters and advocating on behalf of their constituents. Who on our city council is doing the same? And I'd like, if I have any time left, I'd like to yield it back to Jimmy.
Jacob. The next speaker is Jacob Dvorak.
Yes. Thank you for the time. I've just got I live at 4603 Russet Place North, Pearland, Texas. I'm here to get my solicitor's license reinstated. On or about 3/19/2020, in response to the coronavirus surfacing in the United States, Governor Abbott issued a series of executive orders restricting the freedoms of Texans. The effect of the executive orders was to close a large portion of the Texas economy to trade and business. At that time, my solicitor's license was suspended indefinitely. In Executive Order GA-18, dated 4/27/2020, Governor Abbott opened a portion of the economy to businesses. However, I was told that my solicitor's license would continue to be suspended until Governor Abbott completely opened the economy. Consider I can meet or exceed the safety obligations of the retail stores as set forth in the governor's report to open Texas, starting on page 23. I consider this action to be unfair towards me and my primary form of advertising, which is door-to-door sales. My approach in going door-to-door is to knock on the door, step back 6+ feet, and hold up a sign listing my services, credentials, and phone number. Normally, people would look out a side window first to see who's at the door. At that time, they can read my sign. If they don't give me a wave off, I'm going to flip the card over to show them the price. If the person comes out, that's fine. I'll put my gaiter or my face, and we can talk. Or I can turn the sign back over, revealing my phone number, and as a universal sign for call me, I'll pull out my phone, put it to my ear as a universal sign to call me. This will limit the procedure, will limit the contact with the customer and possibility of transferring the virus. Finally, I will keep a container of hand sanitizer and use it after each contact with each household. Further, each morning I will video myself reporting the status of each symptom that indicates I may have contacted virus accumulated with a body temperature. By being outside, I see the governor's protocols. While it may be disputed whether or not sunlight speeds up the killing of the virus, what isn't in dispute is the ability of wind to knock down or blow away any water droplets containing the virus. Also, I see the protocols by using door-to-door sales app software, which keeps track of every door knocked, whether or not I have a face-to-face connection with the prospective client.
And please wrap up.
I'm sorry?
Please wrap up your comments. Your time's expired.
I would like to have my solicitor's license back.
All right, thank you. The fourth and final speaker, Jeff Hunkill.
Hello there, this is Jeff Huntley at 3912 Oakwood Drive North, 77581. As you are well aware, many of us are getting our property tax forms for 2020 are being shocked by yet another increase, but this time it comes in the form of increased home appraisal values. Back in September, I spoke to council and voiced my opposition to council voting to raise the property tax rate. That opposition was ignored and the rate was increased. Now that increased appraised value is compounding that issue due to the voted increase. I spoke out against the excess budget spending and that council needs to decrease the bloated budget. I was again ignored and the budget passed. I see week after week hundreds of thousands of dollars being approved like there is no limit. Then we come to the water billing issue, and then myself and others have spoken out against it. We asked for an independent audit, but you hired a company you frequently do work with and ignored the request of the very citizens that put you in those seats. You stated in multiple meetings how sorry you are, and you know the public has lost trust in council. Now these same people are being affected by this pandemic that has put yet another burden on their lives. It's now time to stop opposing the complaints of the citizens and do the right thing. The mayor and city council of Santa Fe has submitted a letter to their appraisal district asking them to freeze appraisal values and leave them with what they were last year to help ease the pain of the financial hardship people are experiencing. All I'm asking for is to write and submit a letter, and I can send you the letter Santa Fe used. And if people continue to see council voting to raise and spend without the concern of the average citizens, they will know they voted the wrong people to represent them. If you are truly sorry for making decisions people don't agree with and want to start gaining back the trust of the citizens of Pearland, this is one small step to show you are willing to help us in our time of need. You may be in a better financial situation. Some of the citizens aren't as fortunate. Thank you for your time, and I give my time back to Jimmy if he's needed it.
Mayor, that completes the public comments.
You complete the comments, okay. Moving in our in our agenda to item number 5, which is a public hearing. I'll ask the staff to introduce the public hearing and to produce a staff review.
Mayor and Council, tonight's agenda calls for Council to conduct the first of 2 public hearings in accordance with HUD rules and 24 CFR 91.105, which involve the citizen participation requirements that are in the Code of Federal Regulations. Specifically for tonight's public hearing to discuss reprogramming and reallocation of fiscal year 2020 community development block grant funding and the amount totaling $60,000 for social services activities within the city and in response to COVID-19 pandemic. I'd like to start the presentation noting that there are no slides or informational materials for this hearing tonight. This is just a preliminary hearing that is designed to prepare for additional activities that will ensue related to the issue as we progress through the process, which involves a short public comment period and another public hearing. We'll provide some more detailed information. As you know, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, or CARES Act, provides HUD grantees with an opportunity to take advantage of a number of waivers that the Secretary has been authorized to make applicable to the Community Development Block Grant Program, and there are 3 that will be helpful in our endeavors involving the matters before us tonight. One is that we will have the ability to spend more of the city's annual allocation on social services activities, which removes the traditional 15% spending cap imposed on our funds each year. As you may recall from previous HUD allocation planning, our annual allocation is subject to that cap, which historically prevents us from doing as much business in the social services sector as we'd like. But the CARES Act provisions have removed that 15% spending cap, so we can further extend our efforts in the community with our nonprofits and charitable organizations. The second is we have the ability to implement approved spending priorities without having to submit an annual action plan until August of FY21. So in all likelihood, staff will recommend not submitting a full-length annual action plan to HUD this year, and will pursue the abridged planning process that will allow us some relief as far as staff effort in getting our spending plan in place for next year. And the provisions of the CARE Act are also going to give us the ability to reduce the 30-day public comment period to a minimum 5-day period through fiscal year FY 2021. And these provisions are all applicable to our current allocation of HUD funds the FY 2021 allocation of HUD funds, as well as the CARES Act COVID-19 stimulus funding that HUD is issuing to the city in the form of a formula allocation of $251,873. But tonight we are specifically calling for a public hearing to discuss how we make recommendations towards the use of certain funds for the current plan, and we'd like to discuss before the public and for council recommendations to make planning amendments to that effect. If you recall, in fiscal year 19, the city engaged in the planning process regarding the spending priorities for our current year CDBG programs. One of those activities included the intent to support the renovation and rehabilitation of the Pearland Train Depot. While this project has merits and qualifies for use under CDBG, and primarily under the auspices of the historic preservation regulations with HUD, a very redeemable and notable project, COVID-19 obviously represents an obvious urgent need for a response, and HUD has made provisions that allow us to quickly engage in amendments to our plan. And we want to recommend that we take advantage of those opportunities. One challenge we have where the train depot project is concerned, it is not a timely spending project, and we do have some concerns for our HUD timely spending rules and the city's ability to comply with those. So the measure we're recommending also gives us the opportunity to expedite spending in a way that keeps the city in compliance with the rules and HUD regulations regarding timely spending. So with that, Mayor and Council, staff will be proposing to then shift the planned expenditure of $60,000 from the train depot renovation project and reprogram that dollar amount to be used in the following ways. We will be recommending that $20,000 be provided to the Pearland Neighborhood Center for emergency subsistence in the form of rent and utility assistance. A similar amount for the Counseling Connections for Change organization for their mental health services, specifically related to telemedicine capabilities. And finally, we'd like to allocate $20,000 for Actions of Brazoria to provide meal deliveries to the elderly and disabled. And I'd like to point out that Actions was an original part of our current 5-year consolidated plan. And a couple of years ago, Council, through the adoption of the action plan, awarded Actions approval to participate in our CDBG program. But somewhere during the plan year, the director of that organization at the time chose to pull out of the CDBG plan simply because he did not see at the time the sense of urgency that we felt was fundable and supportable with the fund. But of course, now with COVID-19, that has changed dramatically. So we want to incorporate an opportunity to provide that organization with funding. And I'd like to say also that in order to implement this plan, staff will be recommending action on tonight's agenda item L, which is on the consent agenda. It's not the subject of tonight's public hearing, but this will amend the CDBG citizen participation practices in a way that allow for that abbreviated public comment to take place, removing it from the 30-day requirement that HUD currently has in place to a 5-day minimum, which shortens the process and gives us the ability to quickly get money out in the community. And it also expands the allowable social services commitments the city can make beyond that historical 15% cap, which is being removed by HUD. And I might point out that consent agenda item L is not the subject of this public hearing. That's just for discussion sake, Your Honor. As for the train depot as a priority, the project can remain alive for future HUD allocations to support, including the FY21 allocation that the city would expect to receive from HUD in mid-October of 2020. So we're not killing the project. We're just recommending that we shift the priority from that project to some social services activities that definitely have some urgent needs. And so that doesn't eliminate the use of funds for that project. It just rearranges the priorities at this time to respond to coronavirus. In closing, the public hearing is designed to provide public input and council discussion on one of a number of actions that will ultimately come to recommend. There are a lot of other CARES Act activities and priorities and resources that are coming to bear. This is just one small piece of that, but it does involve a piece of the puzzle, if you will, that we have existing current access to funds. So we thought we would make that a priority. And we look forward to starting several months of critical work planning and making sure that we get the resources into the city that are necessary to fully recover from this pandemic. So this is just a start. This concludes the staff report, and with that information on the record, staff has to balance back to Mayor and Council.
I appreciate that, Joel. And as we move in our agenda, the next item, which is steps to be heard, Mayor Pro Tem Little, would you provide that opportunity?
Thank you, Mayor. Is there anyone wishing to speak for or against this item? Second time, anyone wishing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time, anyone wishing to speak for or against this item? No comments, Mayor.
Okay, appreciate that. Moving in our public hearing agenda, the next item is council and staff discussion. Starting with City Council and Councilmember Orlando, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the work that staff has done to make sure that we are able to get as many resources that we're entitled to as possible from the state and federal government, and don't have any additional input or concerns.
Okay. Councilmember Carbone.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't mind this reallocation. I guess the question is, this is a public hearing, and I mean, I get that the Mayor Pro Tem asked for comments, but how's the public supposed to comment? Maybe that's a better question for legal.
Okay.
Thank you. This is Darren. I'll let Joel weigh in, and if he has any comments with respect to any federal regulations with respect to that. Obviously, the governor's order, which allows us to meet this one, entitles the public to participate remotely through an audio bridge, and so they still have that opportunity to do so. And that would be compliant with the law because we're based on the governor's order. So I think we're complying with the law with respect to whether or not any individuals participated. I can't speak to that, and I'll let Joel weigh in on it.
Yes, to add to that, Member Carbone, we have a public comment period, and we'll begin on May the 21st and go through May the 29th. So to suffice for those that are unable to participate in this meeting, the notice that went out instructs them on where to be able to access it for historical purposes, and also gives them an opportunity to provide written or call-in comments. I generally take those, Your Honor, at all times, even if we don't have an official comment period. And if I get some comments during the program year, I will include those in our action planning process or in our end of the year consolidated annual performance evaluation report. So I generally have operated with the understanding that if a citizen has some concern or a point or consideration where this program is concerned, that we incorporate it in some of our documents when we can. But this, of course, helps us to meet some specific regulatory requirements, and we'll do everything we can to make sure that the public can have input on how we proceed. This is a small action, but there'll be bigger ones coming up, and we'll want to make sure that we're working in accordance with HUD regulations and state law and our own local priorities as far as how we operate. But I definitely understand the concern, and we'll make sure we open the door for people to make those kinds of comments. And because that public comment period ends prior to the next public hearing, staff will make sure that those comments are publicized in our notice or in our public hearing materials that we provide council and we present on June the 8th, because we'll have a second public hearing, Your Honor, so we'll be able to make sure those get the light of day.
So bottom line, legally, we can check the box. We had a public hearing, but if we actually want public input, they'll I guess they'll go to the website and they can check it out. If you search CDBG, the Joel's info pops up. So I mean, that's the bottom line of what we're communicating tonight?
Well, what we've communicated in the public notice allows them the public to get that information. That's also on our website. And, we'll be able to continue to make sure that that's well done so that those kinds of comments be included in the planning process.
And just to
Go ahead, Darren.
I was just saying, to clarify, tonight, signing up to speak, as anybody would have had the opportunity to do tonight's meeting, is just one opportunity to have input on this particular item. As Joel indicated, there is a comment period, and they'll still be taking comments as we proceed through that period.
Thank you. That's all I had, Mayor.
That's all you had, okay. Councilmember Little?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with the city's allocation of the HUD funds. I think those are a priority right now. People need to eat, and we need to help people that are suffering from mental illness. So I'm fine with it. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay. Councilman Hernandez?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Hardy, quick question. On here, just looking at some of the numbers also, page 54, we have the Project 3, the 50,457 for the van as well. Since we're not currently utilizing that, I guess since the NAP Center is not currently operating, is that money available as well to kind of add to this, or is that was that decision made to switch to the DEPA money in lieu of?
Well, we want to keep that project in play, if you will, Councilman Hernandez, simply because we want to keep the timely spending compliance in play. And, this expansion into the social services area does allow us to expedite spending. So if we were to reallocate the funds from that project, we also don't allow us to continue with as much capacity spending-wise as possible to keep compliance with 24 CFR 570.902. And we're tested for that spending timeliness compliance each year around end of July and August. And so strategically speaking, we wanted to keep the current group of social services activities in play. Those are ways that we can, easily spend money. And I think the purchase of the van itself is the priority for this year. Putting it into use as the next program year comes to bear is going to be, a different thing. But we certainly intend to and plan on making that purchase this year. And we've been meeting with the Parks Department and Fleet just to make sure that our procurement is in compliance with the rules, because we do need to have some documentation of use in place prior to moving in that direction. And so we've just kind of been in a preparatory mood, making sure that we have all our I's dotted and T's crossed where that kind of purchase is concerned. We haven't purchased a van for the NAP Center in probably close to 18 years. And along with that history goes some, pretty hefty compliance as far as documenting use and things like that. And we just want to make sure we do it right. So that project, I think, is still a priority. It's just a matter of when we pull the trigger on the purchase of the van.
Okay. And then I guess going back, and I appreciate that thoughtful answer, looking also at project number 2, the $20,000, would that be added to the 14, so it'd be a total of 34 for counseling connections? Correct.
And they're in a place where they're probably fully expended to that $14,000. That was a pretty small allocation for them. They accepted it in prior years. We have increased their allocation specifically due to some of their work in the school systems and in response to Hurricane Harvey. And we're seeing the same kinds of situations come to bear. So we want to make sure they've got the resources to continue to serve the community. And I think some of their allocation will be intended to go to a telemedicine format of doing business. And so this does kind of add to the administrative quality of their capabilities. So I think it is an increase, but it's not unforeseen. We've given them this amount of money in the previous years.
Okay, because I was just thinking, was there any consideration given, because I think there's going to be considerable need for like the rental assistance and stuff like that kind of moving forward. I think there's going to be considerable need for that. Was there any consideration given to trying to give more of an equal split, so they would have 34 and then P&C and Actions would have 20? Was there any discussion about trying to make it a little bit closer across the board?
Yes, sir. And actually, the plan does involve us looking at other resources that we have coming to bear. We've got a stimulus allocation of CDBG money on the horizon that we simply need to plan for, and some of those characteristics of spending will incorporate that into the plan. And we also have the larger CARES Act stimulus that's coming through the state in the form of our coronavirus relief fund allocation, and we will have ample resources to make sure that we support these agencies along with the long-term resiliency and economic recovery priorities. So I'm not at all concerned about our ability to truly meet the needs. This was just a real quick first, hand effort to try to get something in place until we can get the planning process for those other two sources of funds to come to bear.
Got it. Okay. Well, I appreciate that background. That's all I have for now, but this looks great, and I'm glad that we have the flexibility to do this and support our service providers and not just Pearland, but kind of the broader community, because I know there are areas in our ETJ and stuff, and those people consider themselves to be Pearlanders as well. And I think anything that any of the municipalities or the states can do at this point to kind of support everybody in their communities or broader communities is a good thing. So I really appreciate you doing the legwork to get this before us. Thank you.
Councilmember Moore?
Thank you, Mayor. I think these are all needed expenditures to these organizations, especially Actions and the counseling connections and the neighborhood center to help some people out in these unfortunate times. So thank you for all your efforts, Joel. And I was just curious, and I know that you've probably already done this, but any other kind of funding from grants for any kind of COVID-19 type issues? I'm sure you went after that money, and we greatly appreciate your help.
Councilmember Perez?
Thanks, Mayor. Again, Joel, great work. I think these are needed allocations for each of these organizations. Just in a matter of public, since I'm on the Pearland Neighborhood Center board, when that matter comes to vote, I'll recuse myself. But at least commenting on the other two, I think finding ways to get these organizations more money, particularly now, is an important role for us as the city and important use for the CDBG money. So thanks again.
Mm-hmm. Good. Councilmember Owens?
Yes, sir. Joel, did you mention previously that using this grant money like that, at some point in time we'd be able to be reimbursed for that?
Yes, sir. So with these funds, the city, of course, takes on the task of initially providing the agencies with the resources through a reimbursement process themselves. So they've got to spend it first. We reimburse them for their eligible costs, and then we immediately seek reimbursement from HUD electronically to get the money back in our coffers. So that process can take place very quickly. In fact, when we submit a reimbursement request through HUD's IDIS system, it is typically within our hands within 72 hours, or maybe just a little bit more. But the return, the response time is pretty quick in that system.
Okay, and so when we get reimbursed, does it go back in the same account that it came out of?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because we've been
just to let you know, the Community Development Block Grant Fund is a separate fund. So all the expenses involving grants are coded to that fund. There can't be any inter-fund transfers unless there's a specific project, a construction project, or a capital project that's being funded with CDBG funds. And all those are, provided in the budget, to council. The action plan would include that information. But these dollars do not commingle with our general fund, or water sewer fund, or any of the other special funds. They stand alone and isolated from all the other work. And we've been doing it like that, number one, since I've been here, so the last 10 years at least. But I think that's a general practice where, especially where HUD, Community Development Block Grant money is concerned, is to segregate those funds from everything else we do financially to make sure there's no commingling of those dollars.
Yeah, well, that's what I was wondering. We've been trying years to do something on the depot, and this money's coming out of the funds that was going to be appropriated for that. So I was just hoping we could get it back in that fund account for the depot.
In the next couple of months, we'll start to plan for, and I say couple of months, in the next month, we'll start to plan for the FY21 allocation of HUD money that we've already received a notification of our allocation. We just need to get that planning process going, and we can reincorporate the depot project with that plan and fund it in the October 1 fiscal year if council chooses to support that.
Okay, thank you, Joel. Appreciate it. That's it.
That completes your comments, Councilman Moore.
Yes.
Okay, good. Let's move back to the City Council and staff discussion. There's now staff opportunity to discuss this as appropriate.
Actually, Mayor, we do have one public speaker on the line from Actions. If we can give them an opportunity to speak.
I'll permit that.
Mayor, we have one public comment on this item. Go ahead and state your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
And just 1 second, looks like if you can join the audio bridge, make sure your audio is connected, please.
Go ahead and speak if you're online. Joshua, are they connected?
They're on the call, but it doesn't look like, if you can connect your audio bridge through the communicate feature, please.
It shows on my end that it's muted.
Try it about, let's see. No, I don't believe so. And just,
Darren, if we adjourn this meeting, can we come back to this speaker if they're online?
I think that would be most appropriate.
Actually, either one or two things. We can actually recess this public hearing and then come back to it if the individual comes on, or the other option would be obviously to encourage that individual to provide any comments they may have in writing, which can be submitted during that comment period. But would not, if that's the case, it would not adjourn the public hearing, but I would recess the public hearing and then proceed to the next item on the agenda.
Okay, Mayor, why don't we recess this public hearing and continue with the consent agenda? And we'll allow the speaker to speak if he comes online.
I think the speaker was aware of the fact that there was a time requirement for him to speak and he has validated that. We're trying to work with him, but I think we'll perhaps they could email that information into our city attorney, or city manager, and we'll proceed with the attorney.
And just to reiterate, if it's the intent of the council to allow the individual to participate at some point during this meeting, I would only recess the meeting.
All right.
And then we can come back and adjourn the meeting at a different point of our meeting, even if it's at the end of our regular business.
Well, I think let's not make it too complicated. I'm sure Action F is going to speak positively and thank us for the application. I'm sure that they can do that in writing or in the next public hearing. So,
Actually, it looks like the audio bridge is connected now, so let me see. Joel, can you hear us?
That was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
good timing.
Okay. Hi, y'all. It's Joel Castro. Or can I speak? Sorry. Mayor, so is it okay if I speak?
We can hear you. Yes, it's now your turn to speak.
I serve on the Board of Actions. I'm President Chairman-elect for the board, and I was just asked to tell y'all thank y'all for considering actions for the CDBG grants. As we all know, that this tragedy has done a lot for made a huge impact on our community. We went from feeding 5,000 families a month to feeding 3,000 a week in Brazoria County, and a lot of that is up here in our northern Brazoria County area, especially Pearland. Anything, of course, is appreciated, and we appreciate the City of Pearland for helping us out. So thank y'all.
Mr. Castro, Mayor, that's all of the public comment.
Okay. That requires our speaker's time frame is completed. Moving back to staff discussion, the staff. Have any other further comments regarding this issue before we move to adjournment?
Mayor, to reiterate that this is a small piece of the puzzle, and there are other much more impactful pieces that we'll be putting planning efforts in place for. So I appreciate the support for the initial work, and hopefully we'll be able to get money out to the community in the next 2 to 3 weeks. With that said, my comment and report is complete.
Okay. That information in the record, I will adjourn this public hearing at 7:24. Moving in our agenda to item number 7, which is a consent agenda. But before, I'll be looking at there's some close to 15 to 16 items. I was so pleased to see so many of them, items that were approved and scheduled in our 2019 and 2020 budget that we passed back in September. So with that information in the record, Mayor Pro Tem, little do we have items to be removed from the consent agenda.
Any items to be removed from my fellow council members?
And if you do, give it to me by, instead of Dave, or give it to me like boy.
Yeah, I've got quite a few of them. B is in boy, C is in cat, D is in dog.
D is in dog.
Else. E, A, and K.
E, F.
E, C, D, E, J, K.
Okay. We are extracting item D, C, D, E, and F, correct?
J, and K.
J and K, Mayor.
Yeah.
Oh, J, F, and K, huh?
No F.
No F.
G, J.
And Mayor, just to clarify and reiterate those are going to be items B, C, D, E, J, as in John, and K.
And K.
Okay. Now, what I have done is mark on my calendar and agenda here I say item B as in Baker, George and Baker. C, D as in dog, E as in easy, F as in friend, J as in John,
No.
A as in King.
F,
No F, Mayor.
not in there. J's in there, not F.
You got an F in there too?
No.
No, Mayor. Take out F. J and K at the end.
F as in friend.
Yes, take out F.
Take out F.
That's part of the consent agenda. He's not removing it.
Okay. So we have, B, C, D, E, J, and K, right?
Correct, Mayor.
Okay. There's so many of them here, we want to make certain that we cover those properly. Moving in our agenda to the, Councilmember Alondo, as our expert on the consent agenda, would you present the consent agenda
Sure, Mayor.
with those exceptions?
Yes, sir. Consideration and possible action on the consent agenda, items A through N, with the exception of B, C, D, E, J, and K. So moved.
Second, this is Councilman Moore.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Councilmember, Student Secretary, we have a motion second on the floor here.
Councilmember Orlando?
Aye.
Councilmember Carbone?
Aye.
Councilmember Little?
Aye.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Aye.
Councilmember Perez?
Aye.
Councilmember Owens?
Aye.
The motion passes 7-0.
Okay. Moving to item number B, Councilmember Alondo. B is in favor.
Consideration and possible action, resolution number R 2020-92. So moved.
Second, this is Moore.
We have a motion and a second. We're in discussions. Staff report. Excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Good evening. Item B, Baker, is a recommendation for a design with R.G. Miller. This is bringing up to modern standards, rehabbing the lift station for our wastewater system, which we call the Royal Oaks lift station. It's been budgeted and in the project, so professional services with Miller as noted. Nothing else to add, sir.
Council, have any question or comment based on staff report?
Yes, sir. The budget that we have in there is the saying of the future on there, or actually the total budget's $560,000. But if you go down to the process on it, we got 76,464 or 467.44 for this contract, and construction on there we're showing as 600,000, and then construction material testing is 12,000. That gives you an overrun in this account. If all the numbers are good, you're going to be short $128,467 on there. So I was just wondering which is the right figure here. You're looking at spending that amount of money, which puts you $128,000 over what the original estimate was.
So thanks for the question. I believe as is noted, we do the CIP and those templates are it will be the process to review those coming up with a couple months. And as the paragraph says there, additional funds are being requested as part of that CIP for this project. So the good thing is that the vast majority of our projects come in under budget and estimates, and so there'll be enough flexibility to take care of this small variance on this particular project.
Yeah, well, that's what I was wondering. That's why I would like if we read the amount for this contract in of $76,467 $467.44 not to exceed. If it does, then you need to come back.
Contract, the agenda item is this, as stated there for the 76 amount there.
Do what?
The agenda and the resolution's all set up for the amount recommended there.
Okay, I just want to make sure if we read it in, then it can't be exceeded. But I was just wondering, you got the amount in there, the construction, and I'm sure, I guess that's just an estimated amount. On there, 600,000, and then when you add the other parts in there, you're going into this project looking at being $128,467 over budget going in.
City Council, any other comments from council regarding this question?
No, Mayor, I think this is just the allocation for the design, not the construction, so we should be good to move forward.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from council?
No, but I think the contract actually does say not to exceed in all the categories except for the actual amount for the design. So I don't think, I mean, it says it already. It's in the language.
Yeah, I think that's typical of all of our resolutions when we award contracts.
Okay, the rest of you happy with it? Let's go.
Okay. Any other question or comment from council? Madam Secretary, I believe we have a motion second on the floor.
Councilmember Orlando?
Aye.
Councilmember Carbone?
Aye.
Councilmember Little?
Aye.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Aye.
Councilmember Perez?
Aye.
Councilmember Owen?
No.
The motion passes 6-1.
Councilor Rolando, would you issue one omission for item C? Shall proceed?
Sir, consideration and possible action, resolution number R 2020-99. So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. We're in discussion. Staff report.
Mr. Coker, you want to grab this one?
Sure, and thank you, Council. This is a resolution. We actually did this a few years ago because utility companies have the ability to apply for what's called a DCRF. It's their distribution cost recovery factor. And that's a tool by which a utility actually try to recover some of the capital costs that they experience in providing their services. This particular DCRF is being requested by New Mexico Power, not CenterPoint, as the majority of our customers in Pearland receive power through CenterPoint. In this particular case, the city has approximately 400 customers that use New Mexico and approximately 70 commercial users that receive their power through Texas, New Mexico. But with respect to this particular process, this is a very, unlike a traditional rate case, this is strictly limited to their capital cost recovery, and they sought a $14.7 million increase to recover their capital recovery, and they have a 150-day process that this goes through the PUC, and we have a very short time. We have until June 4th to either approve or deny this particular request, because we have original jurisdiction and the PUC has appellate jurisdiction. But in this particular process, the PUC's jurisdiction is going to occur regardless. Whether we approve it or whether we deny it, it's still going to go to the PUC to be essentially litigated there. Like I said, it's a fairly quick process and a very short discovery period. And in the past, we've had success with trying to get a lower cost negotiated between now and the time that their rates would actually go into effect. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have and pass it back to council.
Darren, this is Woody.
Yep.
The only reason I pulled that, I know where you're at on it, and I was going to ask you to answer the question anyway. Just recommending that the city retain a law firm, which we all see that. And what I was wanting to find out is that, do we know what the cost would be to return that, or is that something we can do through the CML, whatever?
In this particular case, we're part of a coalition of actually approximately 11 or 12 cities that, us, League City, Baytown, that are members of this coalition, and many other cities that are smaller than us. And we all share in those costs. However, those costs are actually passed on to the utility. So the city is not bearing any costs itself up front. What happens is those costs are awarded, and yes, the utility can pass those on ultimately to their customers, unless there's something negotiated in the settlement agreement that restricts them from doing so.
Okay, so this is previously what we have done in the past.
Yes, sir. It is.
Working with the coalition people.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I was going to. It just said to join with the law firm, and I didn't see any dollars in there.
Yes, sir. So we will not be out of pocket any expenses for this. Directly. All right. Thank you.
Any other question or comment from council? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, I believe we have motion second on the floor.
Councilmember Orlando?
Aye.
Councilmember Carbone?
Aye.
Councilmember Little?
Aye.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Aye.
Councilmember Perez?
Aye.
Councilmember Owens?
Aye.
The motion passes 7-0.
Councilmember Londo, moving to item D for dog.
Consideration and possible action, resolution number R 2020-91. So moved.
Second, this Moore.
We have a motion second on the floor. Staff report.
Thank you. This is a recommendation for purchasing, as it states, 34. These are laptops. They're ruggedized, used in police and fire operations. As it stated there, the useful life is estimated about 5 years, but we have a total of 159 in the system, and this replenishes the inventory so we can go back out and replace those. This is part of a standard state contract that we buy off of. Nothing to add.
Council, any question or comment on staff report?
Yeah, Mayor, I just asked to pull this off with a clarification on one item, and probably Clay can answer that. It says for the delivery and installation of equipment completion within 60 days of order. This company's out of Georgia. I don't think they're going to come up here to install the computers. But I didn't see any cost for doing that, and I didn't know if the cost was in the total amount, or if we're going to get them. I see them there being delivered to John on here, but I didn't know if our staff was going to do it, or if there was a cost for the delivery and installation that they were supposed to come up here and do it, or what. That's what it calls for.
So everybody in the state has the option, of state of Texas has the option to buy off of these. The configuration is done locally, and we deploy them into the units. So they just get mailed over to us. They get shipped.
Okay, good. There won't be any installation costs later on or anything for them to come up and install them into the vehicles.
We install. We got people that handle the installations.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Thank you.
I have a quick comment. Tell me why we wouldn't just buy a couple of them and have them in stock and replace them as the system's crashed or failed?
So, you know, to buy them and to have them, I mean, there's some that are in that condition now, so I wouldn't be surprised if some of them get warehouse or stocked. We do have it for that kind of situation. But, you know, there's enough of them there and they go out and we need to replace the ones, you know, some proactively that are at the end of life that have older configurations, and then, you know, some of them will have available for ones that go south on us.
Any other question or comment from council? Madam Secretary, I believe we have a motion second on the floor.
Councilmember Orlando?
Aye.
Councilmember Carbone?
Aye.
Councilmember Little?
No.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Aye.
Councilmember Perez?
Aye.
Councilmember Owens.
Aye.
The motion passes 6-1.
Councilmember Alondo, moving to consent agenda, item number E as in easy.
Consideration and possible action resolution number R 2020-97, so moved.
Second, this more.
We have a motion and a second. We're in discussion. Staff report.
So this is a renewal of contract for bunker gear cleaning that out of our fire operations. This does go into the next fiscal year, so that's what part of this was noted for in terms of the budget allocation. But this gets that contract for the renewal into place so that we can do exactly that. Up and that.
Council, have any question or comment on staff report?
Yes, Mayor, this is Woody. I asked for that to be pulled off. Going in and looking on page 2 of 5 of this, it said we spent $55,000 for the first year, and this is I guess it's the last of the contract, or second of the contract. The second year estimate's $95,000 for the yearly inspection, and this is being listed as a cause on that for the new personnel in the fire station number 8. When, which is supposed to be, I guess, hiring 26 new people in the fire station. When is the fire station number 8 supposed to come online?
July.
Of this year?
Yes.
Okay, when are we going to have the new personnel in and start hiring them in?
We've already hired 13 at least, and we've been gearing up for this as part of the continuous onboarding, and that's that with the SAFER grant coming in. So that's all going well plan.
Okay, and the reason I'm asking that is because they say this is supposed to be done on a yearly deal. So the ones that are coming in now, they wouldn't be, their equipment wouldn't be inspected until probably this time or later next year, in order to meet the 1-year requirement on coming in and doing in service on those. But it's
there's already been 13 that have been hired as part of this year, and we'll have another batch of them coming through. So there's been people that have been cycled into the departments and they'll get deployed and they're ready to go.
Okay, and another thing in there, it says it was an estimate of $55,000 spent last year. We don't have an actual on that number?
That's, I believe, referring to this fiscal year, so that's for the balance of this year, I believe.
Yeah, well, my concern was that hiring the new personnel, and they got to have equipment for a year before ever, for the inspection, and that would be in 2022 in there. So that's what I was looking at, is seeing where it was at on there of actually coming in to do it. And so coming in and hiring the additional on station number 8 for the 26, it bumped this up $40,000, to do that. So, but I understand from what they're saying that they need to be a yearly inspection on it. But I thought on this one it would be throwing it into 22 before we ever done it. When, if that's the case, it would no sense putting that in the budget for this coming year.
Council, have any other questions or comments? Councilmember Londo, E for easy. Madam Secretary, would you, we have a motion second on the floor.
Councilmember Armando?
Aye.
Councilmember Carbone?
Aye.
Councilmember Little?
Aye.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Aye.
Councilmember Perez?
Aye.
Councilmember Owens?
Aye.
The motion passes 7-0.
Okay, moving to our agenda, Councilmember Londo, item J for John.
Consideration and possible action, resolution number R 2020-100, so moved.
Second, this more.
We do have a motion and a second. We're in discussion. Staff report.
So this is a contract, again, off the state bid contract. That's standard across Texas available. and this is for, as noted, that matrix, the maintenance and all the software we rely upon, everything from the switch gear to the malware, the security, cyber security systems, and all the different routers and information that we have to make sure those are kept up to current standards and updated. Nothing to add.
Council, any question or comment from staff based on the report?
Yes, sir. This is Woody again. On page 2 of 8, as a part of what we're purchasing here, it is New World. And going back to my notes on here, we've had a problem with New World. Is that going to be taken care of in water billing? We've had a problem with New World, and I think, Clay, that was one that was $8,000, and he was going to try to go back to New World and get the money back off of that. But when it came up in the water program on there, and for New World, they I guess it was somebody in the finance said this is not the first time we've had problems with them. And so I was wondering if there's any consideration to not use them anymore if we're having continuous problems with them and it's costing us money.
The cost to switch would be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and time and effort to do that. I mean, any software that anybody buys is going to have issues. We've been very diligent about bringing those up to the company and working through those. So, there's no plans to switch out of that.
Well, the problems that's been caused by them, I think, that's one thing that should be considered, because it's to the point that you actually made the statement of suing them for the $8,000 and getting our money back out of it. But yet and still, if we're continuously having problems with him in the water, and if it's not being fixed, we're going to continuously have more problems with them as time goes on.
Just to correct, I never said we're not suing anybody. All I said is we're going to go back and express that that particular issue, and Mr. Grant's going to be talking to them about getting a credit for some future training towards that when we have it identified as the amount. But again, the scale of that to the whole system, the issues, that doesn't warrant that. So we've been very clear with them about the identifying those, and they've been very responsive as of late. And so that's where we're going.
Councilmember Owens, if I may, this is also, while the New World is a portion that supports our utility billing and also supports our entire financial system in addition to utility billing, including Encode, which is court, and then all of our financial information together, all of our daily processes, everything that we do. So while there have been some issues with the utility billing portion of it, those are being rectified. We are looking at credits for training and other things moving forward, as well as some possible additional being recouped for some additional expenses. So I wanted to just clarify that this is for the entire system, not just related to utility billing.
I need to add too that this is not, we're not paying New World for this. This is the Cisco backend that supports all the integrations and all of that. So this is not a contract to pay New World. It goes back to support a few of the critical applications utilizing these platforms. So that's what that is, this whole contract.
Yeah, well, that just kind of, when I was reading it on page 2 of 8, and New World popped out, and it brought back of what we had, had problems with them in there, and 2 applications that we know as having that and statement on.
Again, this contract is for the support for that. It's not to New World. That list is, as it states there, is all the things that rely upon the routers and everything else that's in here.
Yeah, and I'm not saying we're going to give them New World $200,000. I'm just saying that I saw the name in there as a part of this, and certainly they'll get some of it through there of changing all these. But in light of all the problems we've had in the water side, on there, and two of them that we can actually point to New World. As long as you're happy with them and saying, hey, if it happens again, this will be, the third time. But,
This contract is none of these dollars are going to New World. This is all for the support to get to run the system that integrates to all those systems. Not $1 of this goes to New World.
You just listed New World as one of the platforms that relies upon this support platform, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. One of 12 different ones, right?
Well, it might be, but it just kind of threw me off when I saw it in there, and us having so many problems with New World as a part of with the water probe. Okay. Have we had any discussions with them before we come in and use them additionally?
The council have any other further comments or questions? Okay. Hearing none, Secretary, I believe we have motion second on the floor here for item J.
Councilmember Orlando?
Aye.
Councilmember Carbone?
Aye.
Councilmember Little?
Aye.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Aye.
Councilmember Perez?
Aye.
Councilmember Owens?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Moving to item number K for King, Councilmember Alonso.
Consideration and possible action, second and final reading of ordinance number 1589, so moved.
Second, this is Moore.
We have a motion. Did I hear a second on that?
Mayor.
Did we have a second?
Mayor.
Okay. Then, staff report.
Thanks, sir. This is the second reading of the ordinance that was previously adopted on May 4th, and this is for financing under the Texas Water Development Board. Very favorable terms to the City of Pearland. Mr. Roebuck, I believe, is on the line and can give us an update on the actual rates and so forth as they've come into this. So.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Mayor, City Council, John Roebuck, BOK Financial Securities. On your screen, you see a presentation for the final pricing results of the city's water and sewer system revenue bond series 2020A, which was issued through the Texas Water Development Board. As we discussed 2 weeks ago, the loan we received from the Texas Water Development Board is very beneficial because we do get a subsidy of about 1.55%. Tonight, I'm going to go through the results. If you'll go to page 2. Next slide, let's see here. Can I do this? Here we go. This is an overview of the bond buyer index. Rates, have, like we talked about a couple weeks ago, have been pretty volatile. I will say the last 10 trading days, we've seen rates come down to the tune of 25 to 40 basis points, which makes, obviously, the market even more favorable to us, including the subsidy. You'll see the results are very beneficial to the city. On page 3, we'll go to the sources and uses of funds. Next page, sorry, one more page over. We issued $107,600,000 in bonds. We had to pay an origination fee to Texas Water Development Board of roughly $2.1 million, which generated proceeds of $105,490,106 for the city. The all-cost interest rate is probably the lowest rate we've seen in a long, long time without being zero, of 0.519%. So based on a market of about 3.25% you pay for 30-year debt, with the subsidy, we were able to reduce that rate to about 0.52% for the city. The cost of issuance is not included in this. It's paid out of pocket because we're trying to maximize the proceeds to the city. There's estimated cost of issuance about $157,000, which will come out of your debt service fund for the cost of the issuance of this transaction. On the next page is the debt service requirements based on those rates provided by the Texas Water Development Board. If you'll notice down there, the bottom, the middle column of interest, we're looking at about $6.6 million in interest on a 30-year debt for $107 million in principal, which is very, very low. And then on the last page, is the tentative schedule of events. This is actually the regular schedule of events now because we've sold the bonds, which we received the rates for on the 11th, last Monday. We're asking you to approve it tonight on the 18th of May. And then we'll close and fund, in which time the city will receive the funds on June 16th. And with that, I'll be happy to answer your questions. Rick Woody and Tanya Fisher, your bond counsel, are also on the line. They'll be happy to answer questions you have on the action we're asking you to approve tonight. But this is the financial results of the sale from the last week.
Does the council have any questions or comments at this point? In addition to the ones from John? I don't hear any.
I do.
Who's
The only thing, and I probably, it would be somebody from our staff to do, it's showing that we're, what, 417 million, I guess, will be in debt when we go in, get the balance of this money. Is there any additional funds that we're looking at, putting into that, freshwater plant out there besides what we've gotten from the state? From the water board?
I'm sorry, I'm trying to understand the question. So you mean just on the capital project, or I don't understand the question?
No. With what we're doing with the freshwater plant and the water and sewer system revenue bonds, there is 107,600 on that one. So, but I guess what I'm looking at here, we're going in with the selling of what we have for the Texas Water Development Board of money that we're getting from them, and that's going to put us somewhere around 417 million in debt, I guess it is. And what I'm asking, do we see any additional money other than what we've got from the Texas Water Development Board that we'll be putting in order to complete that plan?
So I'll send you again the latest project updates. Got some technical funds revenue in there. There's operating funds. So, I mean, that's all described every time we provide a project update.
And that was in the Thursday deal?
Yeah, we do those project updates frequently. So yes, probably last time we did the pre-work. We've had 2 rounds of those, so we count it there as well. You've seen it at the agenda item.
Okay, well, I need to call in tomorrow and see on that because I haven't been able to open those. When I go and try to open it up, they said that my account are not able to do that under my account. So I'll get with somebody tomorrow so we can go in there and take a look at that. But I just want to see if this money that we borrowed there, is there additional money that we're going to have to put in this project to get it completed?
Mm-hmm. Got some pretty good rates there. Any other council or comments on this?
Yes, I do, Mayor. Is there any funding from the state for that we can apply for creating a surface water treatment plant? I mean, I know as a state we're short, or we will be short on water as they predicted, and so I mean this is what this is going to help set us up for the future. But do they provide any kind of funding for this besides offering the low interest loans?
I believe that this is their way that they support that. It's the low interest loan. So there's not, I don't know, there might be some areas of the state that are, more hard up that might be eligible for some different kinds of things that have other situations. But as far as outright grants for a growing place, this is how they support, getting out of wells and groundwater and encouraging that as well.
Okay, I just wanted to know if anything has changed since they initiated this whole program. So,
Council, have any further questions or comments at this point? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, I believe we've got a motion and second on the floor.
Councilmember Orlando?
Aye.
Councilmember Carbone?
Aye.
Councilmember Little? Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Hernandez,
Aye.
Councilmember Perez, Councilmember Owens.
No.
The motion passes 6-1.
Okay, moving in our agenda. That's the last of the,
Hold on.
the new business. Let's move to item number 8, which is matters removed from the consent agenda. And there were several of those, but moving to item number 9, new business. Item number 1, Councilmember Carbone. I'm sorry, the city attorney. Oh, okay. Let me focus on you.
I'm sorry, that was, I should not have hit the unmute button. I apologize.
No problem. Always good to see you there. Item number 1, Councilmember Carbone.
Thank you, Mayor. Consideration and possible action. First reading of ordinance number 1588. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We're in discussion.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I did not catch who seconded the motion.
More.
Thank you.
Okay. Staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the first of several items that are fulfilling and furthering past council actions and decisions in terms of financing our capital improvement program. Although they are all financing debt issuances, they are distinct and separate from each other, and in many ways need to stand on their own merits. So I will, talk a little bit first about this one, and that's our water and sewer system. This item is for the water and sewer share of the Orange Street Service Center, Phase 2, South Down Plant, ground storage tank replacement, Berry Rose, wastewater plant expansion and upgrades, a Willowcrest subdivision sanitary sewer, Longwood water reclamation facility decommissioning, Huge Gravity Trunk, Miller Ranch Regional Lift Station, and odor control. And so the revised amount for this from original budget and intent to reimburse is down to $8.38 million. If I can make this work, I did want to share, these projects, as I alluded to, they come now as the actual issuance of the bonds, but this is a template we're working up to try to explain and show the time frame that it takes for these projects. And we're going to try to make this work for specific projects, but just for discussion purposes, overview. These items, they have parallel tracks. There's the planning that is represented most clearly with the budget development and the master plans, et cetera. There's a budget and finance track, and then there's the actual procurement, and which is the land design, engineering, and construction. So these things run for many years, many budget cycles. And what I wanted to point out is, these things get into the CIP, capital improvement program budget, and they become a part of the annual budget that you adopt. And then, as we described in the memo several times, there's an intent to reimburse at the beginning of the fiscal year. And so these projects are consistent with that, what you adopted with that intent to reimburse in October. So we need to follow through on these financings in order to pay the city back for the money that we've expended on these multiple year projects to date. And so just on this one example, we're into this kind of a phase now where we're authorizing the bond sales. So, these items are running concurrently in parallel. Oftentimes there's already been design contracts awarded. There's been construction contracts awarded, but now it's time to pay for the financing of that. And that's what we have here tonight. So I'll turn it over to, I believe, Mr. McCarter is going to say a few things, and he'll turn over to Mr. Roebuck. So, John.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Good evening, Mayor and Council. John McCarter here. It's my pleasure tonight to present to you the 2020 Public Capital Project Financing Sale that we present tonight. Just to go over the framework tonight, obviously being virtual, we'll operate a little bit differently. First, we'll lead it off with our staff presentation. We'll provide some more overview and background that Mr. Pearson started. Then we'll go through the revenue bonds, agenda item number 1, and then the tax-supported sales, agenda items number 2, 3, and 4. After we go through all 4 of those items, we'll hand it over to Mr. John Roebuck, the city's financial advisor, who will cover all the items and go into some of the details about the sale itself. After we cover that presentation, we will go through each one of the items for discussion and consideration by City Council. So Mr. Pearson hit on most of this in his intro, but this issuance of debt is an annual process that we conduct as a city to support our capital improvement plan, or CIP. This is the culmination of almost a year of planning. Coming into this began way back in July when our capital projects group presented the CIP. In August of 2019, that CIP was adopted by City Council via resolution. Then September, the budget itself was adopted, and budget contained the schedule for these expenditures within it. The first meeting in October 14th, we had the adoption of the intent to reimburse. Mr. Pearson mentioned this, but that was the authorization for the city to begin work on these projects that are funded by this issuance. So expenditures have been authorized, and the city is reimbursing itself with the proceeds of these issuances here. Most recently, we published a Thursday packet on May 7th, really to outline everything that we're going through tonight and to provide some context as well. I'll let Mr. Roebuck hit on the next steps a little bit later in his presentation. For the moment, we'll start with the agenda item number 1 and the contents there. I'll cover this and then the following 3 items before we turn that back over for discussion. The bond type for the enterprise fund debt or the water and sewer issuance is revenue bonds that is backed by the water and sewer revenue. These are structured with a 20-year maturity, level debt principal throughout the life of the bonds. Looking at the projects themselves, as you can see in the middle column here, the projects were all included in that intent to reimburse. The final issuance amount of $8.3 million is roughly $38 million lower than the anticipated cost, partially due to Orange Street service station phase number 2 being absorbed into phase number 1. Really, the balance having to do with project scheduling. Now looking at the tax-supported portion of tonight's debt sale. On the bonds issued, or the issuances that we are bringing forward for your consideration that are tax-supported, there's really 2 components. 3 that we'll get into a little later, but the first is general obligation bonds. These are voted on by the electorate. There are 2 pieces to this: 2007 authorization and a 2019 authorization. These are secured by property taxes, and obviously that makes up our debt rate, which is just half our overall component. Looking at the certificates of obligation, these are not voted on by the general public. It does require some additional noticing, which John Roebuck can get on in his piece of the presentation, and these are subject to petition of the voters. Same as with the general obligation bonds, these are secured by property taxes, and this is really what makes up the majority of the debt component of the city's overall tax rate. Within that certificate of obligations, we do have a portion of that will be reimbursed by the TERS, and I'll hit on that a little bit further when we go through those projects. Starting with the general obligation bonds, you can see there's really 2 components here. The first being the 2007 general obligation bonds. This was an authorization of about $162 million. With this issuance of 7.8, the remaining $10 million unissued. Looking at the 2019 bonds authorized by the voters roughly a year ago, it was just under $80 million after this $10.4 million issuance, was about $69 million left on that authorization from the voters. This is structured with level principal. There was some discussion within the Thursday packet that was issued on May 7th about potentially moving at a future date to a structured principal component, but the presentation here and the numbers shared within are all level principal structure for the general obligation bonds. Moving along to certificates of obligation, these are the certificates of obligation that are not reimbursable by the TERS. You can see moving down the list here, we had 11 million covered in the intent to reimburse. About 10 million of that is what we're planning to sell today. All these projects were included on the intent to reimburse. Also worth noting that we have TIP funding here for these safe routes to school. The difference between the 11 million original in the intent to reimburse and the final sale is reduction in costs, and that phase 2 of the Orange Street Service Center being absorbed by phase number 1. Similar to the general obligation bonds, these are level principal structured. Again, that's what's presented here today. That's what we're planning on carrying forward for the 2020 issuance for the non-TERS certificates of obligation. Looking at the TERS reimbursable certificates of obligation, we have a total of $11.4 million, which is exactly what we plan to issue in the intent to reimburse. All of these were included there. This issuance is structured a little bit uniquely. We've discussed this at length prior to tonight's meeting, but these are structured with a 10-year maturity with the interest payments ballooning in 2030, at which point the value of the TERS will be coming onto the city's tax roll, and we'll be able to leverage that, that reimbursement will be coming from the TERS for the expenditures related to these projects, and that reimbursement will be used to defease the balance of the project shown, or I'm sorry, the debt that will be outstanding at that point. Further discussion on that can be found in that Thursday package. So with that, I will hand it over to Mr. Roebuck to take us through his presentation.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. Again, we'll turn to the first page, John. I appreciate it. This is, again, is the bond buyer index. This is a weekly index of the municipal bond market. We provided this actually to the city about a week and a half ago, so we gave you your packets and gave you plenty of time. Since then, rates, as I mentioned earlier, have come down. The last 10 trading days, rates have dropped, again, 25 to 40 basis points across the maturities scale. As a result, the GEO index, which is indicated there in the blue line, is at 2.48%. To put that in context, the all-time low is at 2.25. So we're about 23 basis points off of the all-time low. The red line is the index for revenue bonds, in this case, water and sewer revenue bonds. It's currently at a 2.9%. And again, in context, the low is 2.75. So about 15 basis points off of all-time lows. So again, we're in a great environment. So bonds, we think rates will stay in this environment as we traverse through, number one, the COVID-19 pandemic, and also through, obviously, the oil and gas prices as we have seen the impact of those across the Texas economy and also the global economy. On page 2, and I apologize up front, this presentation is structured to go through the GEO debt first and the COs and the water and sewer, which is a little backwards from how Mr. McCarter presented it. But these first couple of slides are based on the GEO debt. In this case, permanent improvement bonds. This is the voted authorized debt. As Mr. McCarter pointed out, we're looking to generate $18,277,000 in proceeds to the GEO permanent improvement debt to the 2007 and 2019 authorizations. Based on current market rates, we believe investors will pay us a premium of a little over $2 million, which will reduce the amount of bonds we have to issue from $18,277,000 down to $16,420,000. And the debt, based on the current debt service requirements the city is doing the far left, and you add the principal, the interest, and proposed permanent improvement bond issue, the next columns, the resulting debt service is there on the right. And again, this is again based on estimated current market rates. These rates are subject to change, and these principal amounts are subject to change. If you'll go to the next page, John. This is the estimated source and use of funds. As I mentioned earlier, we believe investors will pay roughly $2 million premium, again, estimated. So we issue $16,420,000 in bonds, generate premium of $2 million, less cost of issuance, generates the proceeds of $18,277,000. Again, based on today's interest rates, we are estimating all cost transit rate of a 3.017%. On the next page, we get into the certificates of obligation. And as Mr. McCarter pointed out, these are GEO debt, but it's not voted authorized. These are petition-based. And so if you approve the action tonight, we will post a notice of intent to issue these two bond issues twice in the next 2 consecutive weeks. and also post this notice, these two notices on your website for a period of up to 45 days, at which point we'll be able to sell the debt and approve the bond issues. But for the Certificates of Obligation Series 2020A, which is the city's portion, we are looking to generate, again, $10,188,400 for the city. We believe investors will pay a premium, which reduces the par amount down to $9,160,000. And then for the 2020B Certificates of Obligation, these are the TERS-related projects. Now, we are doing, like John said, a bullet maturity in 2030, and of $10,090,000, which will generate proceeds of $11,440,000. We have a shorter call on these 2020B Certificates of Obligation, and we're asking them to be callable on March 1 of 2026, because we believe by the time the city finishes the project, puts in the request to be put in line to be reimbursed with the TERS, we're hopeful that the city will be reimbursed starting in 2026 and 2027, or any time between then and 2030, which is when the TERS ends. And we'll get those funds plus interest that will accrue from the date the project's approved by the TERS, and use those funds to pay off this debt. So hopefully it's a very minimal cost to the city. Then next page, sorry, John. The estimated source and uses for the 2028 is again $9,160,000 par amount, generates proceeds of $10,188,000. All costs estimated interest rate is 3.25%, excuse me, 3.025%. And then for the 2020B bonds, for certificate of obligation, we issue $10,090,000 in bonds, generate proceeds of $11,440,000. Estimated all cost interest rates of 3.346 based on today's interest rate environment. The next two pages, we'll get into the water sewer bond issues. The one we talked about earlier tonight was the private placement of the Texas Water Development Board. This one will be sold as a public sale over a 20-year period, amortization schedule, and we will generate, hopefully, $8,381,000 in proceeds by issuing $7,325,000 in bonds. Again, 20-year level principal structure, like we talked about on the other bond issues, and the estimated source and use of funds on the next page. Again, $7,325,000 in par amount to generate $8,381,000 in proceeds for the city, and an estimated all-cost interest rate of 2.76%. Now, to accomplish all this, we have a tentative schedule of events put in place on the next page. And so that first date there is tonight. We're asking you to approve the first reading of the ordinances for the permanent improvement bonds, Series 2020, and also the water and sewer system revenue bond, Series 2020Bs, and also authorize a notice of intent to issue the certificates of obligation, both the 2020As and the 2020Bs. If you'll do approve those notices of intent, we will publish the first notice on Friday, 22nd, and the second one on the 29th. And then on the next page, John. Then on the 8th of June, we'll come back and ask for the second reading of the ordinances for the water and sewer 2020Bs and also the permanent improvement bonds, Series 2020. We'll have rating calls on the 22nd of June, sell the bonds the morning of Monday, July 13th, and present those results to you that evening, and then close on Tuesday, August 11th, at which time the city will receive the funds for all four of those bond issuances. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have on the financing structures and the financing numbers. Again, Rick Woody and Tanya Fisher, your bond counsel, are also on the line. I'm sure they'll be happy to answer any questions related to the ordinance or the resolutions we're asking you to approve tonight.
Thank you, Johnny. Dr. Clay.
Mayor, just to wrap up a little bit, the item, we wanted to, there was no great way to do this, but the item that's up next would be specific to the water and sewer revenue bonds, and that is all backed by the water and sewer rates. And again, it's a 3-year maturity level principle as we've done in the past. If we want to look at future budgets and CIPs, changing the past practice, particularly for the general obligation backed ones, that we could talk about that at that time. But These are all improvements that the city, as a long-term entity, we need all the projects that are here to keep the water and the wastewater system up to capacity where it needs to be and modern standards and all that. So, and as we've tried to illustrate, these are capital improvements that have been a long time in coming, and tonight's the time, and we're fortunate that the timing is such that the rates are so good. We'll be very competitive on the interest rate. The city does maintain a very strong credit rating because of the financial performance here. And so we're ready to go forward with this for this first item on the water and sewer. Nothing to add, sir.
John?
Does the council have any other question or comment from the council?
Mayor, this is Woody. I've got a couple on John Roebuck still on there. In the last 2 weeks, from what I've seen on there and get me through this, but we were at 300 and something million in debt, and then with the 117 million of the Texas Water Board approving that, it brought us up to about 400 something million, about 440, something like that, 414. I'm seeing numbers on there tonight, and I guess I see some of 440 million. The other was 472 million, 341, 199 dollars, and then the last page on 18 said 431 million, 421 dollars. And so, where do we stand on this? I'm getting several different numbers, and I don't know if it's convoluted with COs, general GOs, Texas Water Board, or this combination of all of it.
Great question, Councilmember Owens. Well, there's really two types of debt we're looking at here. The first several pages of the presentation went through are general obligation debt. So if you look, John, I'm not sure if you can go back. If you look at page, I think it's page 4. After all the debt issuances, the city will have approximately $472 million in general obligation debt outstanding. 2 more pages, sorry, John. Yeah, the bottom right corner. So after the issuance of the permanent improvement bonds and the 2 certificates of obligation, the city will have approximately $472 million outstanding, and that's principal and interest. That's
right.
It's not just principal. And then if you go 2 more pages forward, John, you have the water and sewer debt. Now, fortunately, the way timing worked, the numbers for the current debt service are the estimated results of the 2020 A's on the far left. So that number actually is a little bit lower by about $3 million or so on the far right. So really, it should be about $428 million for the debt service of water and sewer system.
Oh, that was 431. That's from water and sewer.
The 431 was water and sewer, but unfortunately, we turned this presentation in before we got the final results of the Texas Water Development Board issue that we discussed earlier tonight, and we estimated 420 to be the total with the Texas Water Development Board in it, but actually it's about $3 million less. It should be 417 million, 352 million.
Yeah.
So sorry, 417 million, 352,000, not 420,000. 420 million. Should be about $3 million less.
Okay.
The numbers aren't jiving. Just the timing of the bond issue, and then we have to turn this presentation into your packet.
Okay, it just seems like in the last 2 weeks has been a pretty good increase of what we need to do. And it brings me to the last point on this, selling this in the bonds and actually calculating what went through the price of water. The price of water and the sale of water is enough to pay this debt on a yearly basis, as it is, without any increase in the water and sewer rates. Clay?
Remember what? I'll refer you to the multi-year budget that already anticipates all of this, and that's the revenue stream. We look at that each summer, and that's part of your presentation. Those get updated. The actual usage is fickle with the weather, but you know, that's all been baked in and the best estimates we had at those times. So we'll be updating that again in the summer.
All right, so the possibility is that the water rate can go up since we've had such, you know, well, we haven't had a real wet year yet.
The rate will be, lots goes into those things, and that's what we look at and we'll present to you.
Well, the way it looks right now, though, Clay, if, you know, by selling these bonds and getting in that kind of debt right now, you know, at some point in time, I mean, you know, in this, regardless of what things are, we've got to generate enough money or the sale of water in order to pay for these bonds. There's no way to get out of it there. And if it takes a rate increase, it'll take a rate increase. So for me, I'm pretty cautious on selling all of this as it is right now. Because nobody can say that, yeah, based on this and where we're at right now, there's no problem with us, you know, selling these bonds right now. And with the rate that we're charging water, we have no problem in repaying this debt.
We have no problem servicing the debt with all the information we have. The system is large and takes in $50 million a year, and these debt service payments are well within all that, plus very conservative bond coverage ratios on top of that in the fund balances. So there's no problem. And the more important thing would be at this point, the city's committed to these projects, well into these projects, and this capital financing must be sold in order to pay for those projects.
So there's none of the projects that can be delayed through this process right now?
All these projects, as we described, you've seen and approved for the intent to reimburse, and we've acted upon that. And you'll have an opportunity. We've added an extra capital improvement meeting on June 27th, which would be the time to look at other projects, not ones that we've already started with and committed to with projects like this.
Well, I'm just going to have a hard time voting for this, to be honest with you right now. And I'll probably be the only one out of 7, so it shouldn't make that much difference to you. But I just can't see us going in this kind of debt, you know, and right now as it is, and looking at everything that's in front of us right now, and, you know, and I think Down McWhorter came out and spoke in the paper the other day that, you know, that we've not been in a position like this since the Great Recession in 2008, 2009. But this, from all indications, are going to be this way for some period of time. It's not going to be a switch that comes on and says, okay, everything's over with right now. I mean, you're talking about a long period of time flowing out of this before anything's been here. And I just really think that we'd be very cautious on what we do and what we sell and how much debt that we get into. But I don't want to see, you know, in the next year or 2 years, water rates go outside the perimeter being able to pay for them, and the debt being such to increase a rate of taxation on the people as it is right now.
So I'll make two points. One is there's absolutely nothing that has been shown or indicated that would change from the multi-year that shows our ability to repay these. And I would suggest that as fiduciaries, the alternative of not selling this and the devastating impact of not having these capital proceeds for what's already been committed, you know, that would be the alternative. So not selling these would be that unsustainable kind of decision that would, you know, I don't know how we would handle that. Proceeding with this is very manageable and would complete the projects that the City of Pearland needs for water, sewer, facilities, roads, drainage, everything else that's been committed to.
John, I've got a question. What would it do to our bond rating if we were to renege and not issue these bonds at this point? How would the bond rating agencies view that?
We have not even started the process of talking to rating companies at this point, so the rating companies don't even know we're talking about issuing this debt at this time.
Right, but if at this point, they were aware that at this late time that we pulled back on issuing this debt, would that affect our bond rating?
No, sir, it would not affect the bond rating.
Okay.
I mean, that's a technically correct answer, but the actual would be to backfill the massive amounts of money that we needed without having this would be overwhelming, and so that would affect our credit rating.
If you had to come out of pocket for those funds and dip into reserves, yes, it could be negative impact on your credit rating. But like,
well, would it be fair to say right now the debt is as cheap as possible, or as cheap as we've seen in quite a while, and if we did not issue this debt, it would cost us more, both in an increased rate or because we wouldn't be able to get the same rates as we were able to now because of a decreased or a negative effect on our bond rating. Is that all what? Would I make correct assumptions by saying all that?
I believe so. Yes, I think I understand what you're saying. Yes, rates are the lowest we've seen issuing debt for the city ever, just based on these rates. Keep in mind, the historical low rates occurred several years ago, back in, I think it's 2018, prior to today. So we've seen historically low rates. Now, if you decide to wait and do this later, at the time, I can't tell you what the interest can be, or if you decide to delay the project and it costs more because you waited too long. Again, I can't necessarily answer that question without knowing what the plans would be. But right now, you have historically low rates.
I think the general theme is that the debt is affordable for us. It meets our master planning, and it would be financially foolish for us not to take advantage of the low rates while we have the opportunity. So, I agree with that.
And I wanted to, I guess, kind of echo what Councilman Perez said. I was going to chime in. That's why I turned my audio on. But I'm going to say the same things. I see these projects. And also keep in mind that I think right now we're just discussing item number one. So to be more specific around these, revenue-supported bonds, I think these types of projects are more crucial to the city than maybe other types of projects, given that they're projects that have already kind of been committed to. The impact of maybe pushing them aside and having to come back later, and projects that we're going to have to do I think it's a no-brainer to take the low rates and just move forward with stuff that we're going to have to do. I mean, we just can't tell people, no, we're not going to, build out the infrastructure necessary to treat wastewater and provide expansion of a system that is constantly growing as our city grows. So this is kind of my take on this. But just again, it kind of pulls back into the item one, which I think we're discussing right now. I don't want to get too broad because I think it's kind of confusing to people who might be watching, and if we're trying to discuss all four items at once. But that's just my take on it. Appreciate your time.
So let me ask a question. I want to jump in here. On page 23 of 120, it shows the summary of principal structure options. So basically, that is our debt rate, which increases from the 0.4344 in 2022. It goes up to 0.750, which is a 0.0406 increase. How does that relate to the taxing to pay for that debt? I mean, the same question that Councilmember Owens has, I have, is how does that affect us? I mean, we're going to have to raise the tax rate for water and sewer to pay for that debt?
I think those are just individual discussions that we have in each budget year. And there's a lot of things that come into play with the tax rate and the water sewer rate. And we had the discussion, if you recall, earlier in the year when we talked about, we had our discussion item about certificates of obligation, about in this budget session, during our normal budget process, talking about potentially putting a cap and getting to a cap of how much debt we want how much debt we want as a percentage of the amount we take in property tax. Bear in mind, the property, we only measure it by the rate of the property tax, even though that's about half of the revenue that goes into the general revenue fund, the other half being sales tax. So we can have all those discussions. I mean, there's nothing, right now, we're just meeting what we obligated ourselves to during the budget and by the approval of all these projects. But there's nothing that says we can't look at the future and say, how do we manage the debt from here on out? But we're not, I mean, we've already paid for the projects. It's like we remodeled the house and now we're telling the bank that we don't want to pay the loan. It's just not reasonable for us to explore it at this time. But like we had discussed previously, let's get in the budget. Let's take a look at how we want to strategize for the long term, so we have a plan in place on how we want to manage our debt in the future. So we're not dealing with this in such a knee-jerk reaction every time we have a budgetary item come up.
Thank you, but I'd like somebody from staff to answer that question.
So page 23, 120, kind of going with what Member Hernandez says, that's relative to the general obligation side. So that would have nothing to do with the water sewer rate side of things. So maybe if you're all right, Member Moore, with holding that until we get to the next part, that might be more germane to that. The page that's up now, that reflects the revenue bonds that are up for tonight. It's just 8.3 million.
Okay, I'll hold off.
Yeah.
Any other comments from council? This one, questions? Madam Secretary, you awake on us now?
Yes, sir, I am.
I have one other question.
Motion second on the floor.
I got one other question before we move to voting. On this stuff, is there a way that we can do a quick workshop on some of these items here? I mean, when we started this, we were in a different economic time than what we are now, and I just want to ensure that going forward, we're making sensible decisions on these projects. I understand that we need to sell these bonds, but and that the interest rate is low and that we can take advantage of all of that. But I think we need to maybe step back and maybe prioritize some of these projects.
So the June 27 meeting is what we had already set up even before pandemic or thought about that. We talked about that in February. So that's when you'll have, that'll be perfect for looking at the next EIP and projects that we haven't already committed to, like these.
Will these bonds be sold before then?
Yes.
That's kind of putting the wrong thing. And going back to
these bonds are being sold for the projects we've already committed to back in October. As Member Perez said, we need to finance what we've already started. So what I referred to in June 27 is a CIP meeting where we can look at actually projects that haven't started down this road like these.
Just to be clear, Clay, you mentioned earlier the devastating repercussions that would happen if we didn't authorize bonds to pay for expenditures that we already authorized. Could you just maybe make that a little more clear what the implications of that might be?
So, just off the top there, the southbound plant, Trent, help me out. I believe we've awarded that construction. I know we designed that.
Yes, sir. That construction has been awarded.
So southbound plant, if we don't sell the bonds for this, we're gonna have to come up with cash, $2.1 million to pay for that. So instead of issuing debt over 20 years to be repaid by the people who enjoy that benefit and pay the low interest rates historically low, we'd have to come up with that, and that'd be the same for most all these projects. So, and it's even worse on the general side. So it just is not. I got to be honest, it's not a feasible option not to pay and finance for these.
So even if it felt like, we were reducing the amount of debt we're taking on, actually, for some of this, that's not really the case. We would still owe it. It would just put us in an enormous crunch to come up with that money immediately without the benefit of this favorable financing.
Yeah, I don't want to be overly dramatic, but on the general side, a crunch that could not be overcome. I mean, it's just the reality. These are planned to be paid for over 20 years versus, in the next 4 months out of this budget.
Clay, on this, if we go ahead and sell those bonds on there, I think it's too late to sit down and see what we can actually pay for them at that time after you already sold them. And, 20 years, you take a lot of these projects that are not 10, 15 years old, and all that have to be replaced again. So before we pay off this bond debt, we're probably going to be coming back and selling more bonds to do anything on there. But I think, to go through this and actually sell these bonds prematurely, I think, on some of this, and then think about, okay, well, what if we can't pay for them? Well, it's too late. Then you're in the saddle. You got to ride it out. And I just, not knowing where we're at right now, and not knowing how this virus is going to control the market, which they say right now might be sometime mid-year next year before the market ever recovers on anything like that. I think it's going to be a difficult situation to jump in right now and do this, and not really stand back and take a look and see what, a month, maybe 2 months down the road, how things are looking at. Are we out of it? Do we pull out of it, or whatever? I think, when you don't know what's going to happen in the future tomorrow, I think, let's sell this kind of bonds and go, like I said, we're looking at going from 300 and something million to 431 million in debt in the last 2 weeks.
So, Member Owens, I'll disagree that the life cycle of these is not less than 20 years. Most of them are going to be more than 20 years. I mean, that's been the record. But more importantly, we're not relying on the stock market to pay for these. We're relying on water and sewer revenue, which will continue. People need to keep using that, and the people relying upon having plants that aren't undersized. And Barry Rose is up there. We must expand that. We're at the trigger points for expanding that, and so it's not a question of whether we can just decide we don't want to issue these bonds. These monies have to be paid for and have to be committed to.
Are there any others that we could pull out of here and not do that? I mean,
you know what?
You're not relying on the stock market, but a lot of people sitting out there that's going to pay this water rate, going to pay your tax, property tax, and stuff like that. They are depending on that, and they're being hurt tremendously right now. And they're not thinking about paying for your water. They're not thinking about paying for your property tax right now either.
But this is the same conversation we had back in 07 and 08 when we said that we couldn't tell what was going to happen, and so therefore we couldn't fund the 07 bond projects, and the economic downturn didn't actually hit Pearland all that hard, but the damage done by not moving forward with the projects that we were obligated to move forward with did a long-term project. There's no financial model that says that these bonds aren't affordable for us, and there's also no financial model that says that if we push this back by even a couple of months, that saves any money to the citizens. It actually costs them money, because eventually we would likely have to pay a higher rate. Right now we have, $17 million in our reserve. If we pulled out $8 million of that to be able to pay for the revenue bonds, then there goes our rating, because we don't have the reserves to carry over for 2.5 or the 25% of our budget. I mean, everything snowballs for it doesn't look as good as I want it to immediately kind of conversation. It really just doesn't make any sense for us to not move forward with the obligations we already had. When we get into June 27th, and we have the mid-budget discussion like we were going to like we do every year when we take a look at what the revenue that we're getting in and how that affects our budget in the last several years that has been into the positive, it's expected that this will go in the negative, then we can make the changes that are necessary then. And then when we go into next year's budget, we can take a look at the 5-year CIP and find out what projects we don't want to move forward with. But not issuing bonds for projects that we've already started on is just, it's not a solution for anything. It makes things significantly worse. Again, we're conversing about, we've already remodeled the house. We've already gotten everything moving on remodeling the house. We're just trying to say that we don't want to pay the bank back.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, Trent, but I don't agree with you. The thing that I think is, anytime is a good time to stop a bad decision.
It's not a bad decision.
You talk about the modern house.
This is a very good decision.
Well, hang on to the chin. We've got all these projects to do, but that don't mean anything. I mean, these are people, you're trying to speak to people that's sitting out there when you got a high unemployment rate and they've been out of work for 2 or 3 months, and when they turn the light on, they're not going back to work probably in 2 or 3 months. It might be 4 months or 5 months if they go back to work at all.
Yeah, and
I think these are some decisions are things that goes into the decision-making process, I think, of where we're at. And there's nothing out there that says right now that, hey, coming to the end of this month, good times, we're going to open back up, but those are not happening.
You don't know that, and it's all speculative.
You don't know
everything. Like the same people that you say are going to be hurt by not being able to pay. If they cut off their water or they're not able to afford their house, then that's built into the model. But we have people every year that have that issue, and we have people every year that get large promotions and go buy a bigger house and spend more water. It's all built into the model. What I don't want to do is tell everybody that we're going out and getting this water treatment plant and making these expansions on the sewer plants, all these necessary projects, and then not doing it, because we end up the same problem we have with McCard. That road should have been built a decade ago, and because we made a foolhardy decision not to fund it, we still don't have that road, and we're still trying to explain to people why there's traffic on 518.
If
I can jump in.
Going to be McCard. It's not only for traffic, but we could take the water that we were buying from the city of Houston that we were part of, and we could take those water lines over there and discontinue the 50,000 or 5 million gallons on the east or on the west side of that, and we could pay for that water line design and construction in 9 years for the difference in the price.
Yep.
Well, now we're saying that we need that water line, we need the west side waters we need 10 million gallons a day on other because of the growth. And if you're buying 5 million,
all that stuff we got to do, we got to pay for. The projects don't come free.
Yeah, all
don't.
Good points. Right now, we're talking about $8 million of projects we've already spent money on. We beat it to death. Let's vote on this and debate the future ordinances coming up. But right now, it's $8 million. We've spent it. We need to issue the debt. Let's vote and save the debate when it's more applicable.
Yeah, we have it in June, and we have the budget to go over that stuff.
So
this is the same conversation we had in 08 with the big depression then, and that's what we had with the water functions and the deluge you had about 3 years ago. We talked about it. I think it makes a lot of sense for us to press on and prepare ourselves, because if we don't, I think we're going to suffer in the long run more by doing it than trying to help and make certain that we do it the right way. I think that these decisions have been talked about. We did it through workshops during the budget process. And this is nothing but part of the budget process timeline of saying we need to do one of the items we talked about. So I would encourage you to go ahead and let's make a decision of where we need to be 10 to 15 to 20 years from now. 20 years from now, they're going 2045 when that population base is supposed to be close to another 10 million in the Houston area. But I didn't mean to cut you off, Tony.
Appreciate it. I think we're ready to vote.
Let's go.
Okay, we have Madam Secretary, I think we're ready to vote on this item.
Okay, Councilmember Carbone?
Aye.
Councilmember Little?
Aye.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Aye.
Councilmember Perez?
Aye.
Councilmember Owens?
Nope.
Councilmember Orlando?
Aye.
The motion passes 6-1.
Okay. With that information in the record, Mr. Pearson, you made a comment about the first 4 items on the agenda what John was talking about earlier in his presentation. Did you imply that you want to do all four of those under one vote, or proceed in three more votes?
I think maybe we better take them separately. They're need to stand on their own merits, so I appreciate that. But we try to give a broad overview, but we should look at each of these on their own.
Okay. Councilmember Alondo, item number 2.
Consideration and possible action, first reading of ordinance number 1590. So moved.
Second, Little.
Motion seconded. With discussion, staff report.
So, John, can you put that same table up for these? Thanks. So this is a permanent improvement bonds, general obligation bonds that are backed by property taxes over the 20 years. And these projects were, as shown here, all included in the intent to reimburse. It's changed from the what we thought back last October from the 27 million down to the 10 million. I'm sorry, 18 million. Projects include these road improvements. Things, the largest item would be McCard Road, which we're preparing to award for construction, and then drainage improvements. As you see there, a couple of facilities and street reconstruction, neighborhood street reconstruction. So these, much like the other ones, same kind of idea. Some of these were, part of the 07 and the vote approved 19 bond issues, and these would continue that what was voted upon there. We've begun as we've talked about several times. So I'll just give one more appreciation for the staff colleagues who have pursued the TIP funding, which takes our local dollars even farther. And it's been a huge part of this McCard improvement project, which is going to be really a game changer and something that's going to stand the test of time for decades here. So I don't have anything to add. I don't know if John McCarter or Mr. Roebuck have anything on this one.
Okay. We've had a discussion from city staff. What's your comment from city council? Did you have Roebuck? We're going to talk some more.
I don't. I think we're good on our side, Mayor.
Okay, he did a good job arresting it. Okay, we have a motion second on the floor, and then
Mayor, I've got a question.
yeah, we're still in the question stage for the item number 2.
Let me say, it's my understanding that the fire facility and the animal shelter are going to be bid in the same contract?
No, the animal shelter and the no, the fire service that's on here, that's over at Veterans. Those are not being bid together.
Okay, how about the new one that's over there on Freedom Drive, right beside where the animal shelters can be built?
Right. So we've told you that replacement station on Freedom Drive would be paired with that for all the same reasons we've told you about for staging and not tripping over each other with contractors, and that's much better for the city.
Well, on that, are we going to mix and mingle the money? I see the intent to reimburse on the animal shelter. There's $7.1 million roughly.
We've got many projects that have different funding streams, and this be one that, it's going to be pretty straightforward to be able to segregate that. I mean, we'll have one contract, but we'll have a couple different funding streams.
So the bond money that was put up for the animal shelter will still remain at that total amount of money, and the fire station will be for whatever that dollar value was.
That's, yes. Yes.
Okay, because that's quite a bit. The animal shelter is looking at the intent to reimburse there $7.1 million versus what was looked at $13 million in the beginning.
No. So that when we did the October for the animal shelter, we figured we'd be a little bit farther along with that, and so we figured we're going to need 7.1 for the financing. The overall budget is still the same. We're not. We got the CMAR going, but we only need the 1.5 right now to finance where we're at.
Okay, so this is just a preliminary financing of what's being done currently.
It's a midstream financing for what we're already into.
Any further questions or comments from council based on staff report? Madam Secretary, I'm gonna wake you up for this one. Motion second on the floor.
Councilmember Orlando? Councilmember Orlando?
You said aye. You moved to.
Councilmember Carbone?
Aye.
Councilmember Little?
Aye.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Aye.
Councilmember Perez?
Aye.
Councilmember Owens?
Aye.
The motion passes 7-0.
Moving in our agenda to item number 4. Item number 3. Hernandez, would you present this for our consideration?
Yes, sir, Mayor. Consideration and possible action resolution number R2020-82. So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second. More.
We do have a second. We're in discussion. Staff report.
So the projects in this certificate of obligation are on your screen now. Same program whereby these were approved in the intent to reimburse. We were able to fold in the Orange Street, so bringing this in less than had been anticipated. We are pulling forward I need some additional funds for the Windward Bay intersection improvements that you see there, but that was anticipated, that project was, but bringing that money up towards that. So this gets our facilities, everything from the City Hall roof, which came in better pricing, also the public safety building, PSB backup power. We do, that facility's been there for 14 years, and the generators that are there don't power the entire building, air conditioning, so we are very strongly of the opinion that we need to upgrade that system. It won't be in place for this hurricane season, but we'll make provisions. So that's an important project. But the other ones are, as was mentioned, Fire Station 4 replacements, safe routes to schools, which are a local match for that. City share of that 288 frontage road between 59 and 518, and then the intersection signal improvements to upgrade those and keep those up. So down from what we anticipated, but still at $10.1 million. Nothing to add, sir.
Council, any question or comment based on staff report?
Mayor, this is Woody again.
No, Woody?
I'd like to see us bring that 288 northbound frontage road off of there. There's a couple of things that's going on. We look at on January the 27th of the advanced funding agreement, 100% of the cost for both the design and construction will be the responsibility of the city, county, per previously extended the contract. We're not going to get by with $5.6 million for that. And I've got a problem with that, being able to do that, because I don't think right now that we've seen anything. The HGAC has not put any money into this project. We brought it in to be able to get it done working with the county and the toll authority, which now the toll authority is out of it. And I'm kind of wondering, with us being in that, the city, is the county only contributing $1.5 million into this? That's a big concern I have on that. And I don't even think we know what the total amount is that we're going to be obligated in, because, with the design and the construction, it's supposed to be the responsibility of the city and the county. The second thing is, this is a county roadway. That's not in the city limits. That area over there is not in the city limits at all. It's a county area. And Silver Lake is not in the city limits, nor will it probably ever be. But we're coming in and we're selling bonds here, and we're going to tax the Pearland residents here to pay for this roadway. that's not even in the city. And we had looked at it from the beginning, the city did, of pulling that project in, getting it done 5 years early on here. But at the time when we pulled it in, even HGAC wouldn't do it because they wanted to go in 2025 with the state. So this whole thing is dropped in our lap. And, you know, we just did another one a couple of weeks ago of $7 million to pay for TxDOT and their part in the work. And so, you know, I'd like to see take this off of there until we find out how much is it's going to cost us. I don't think nobody from the city has come in and told us how much it's going to cost. We don't have any idea. We know what we're going to pay, and what is the county's part of this.
So, Ramon, it's not true that nobody has any idea how much it's going to cost or pay. We've recounted that several times. The sharing of costs between the county, PDC, and the city. You know, Trent, do you want to talk about sort of anything you want to from that?
Sure. I think
$450,000 at $750,000 that was going to be in the beginning on this. But I'm saying right now that, you know, when you look at this thing, that, you know, what we're looking at is, you know, $5.6 million, but it's in a contract, an advance funding agreement says that we're going to be paying the design, which we're up get close to $1 million on the design, and the construction cost. Yeah. And in the beginning, back when it first came in, the construction cost was estimated to be $11.5 million. So I haven't seen any numbers recently of how much that we're actually in for on this and how much the county is in putting in. They're still at the $1.5 million, and we'll pick up the rest. You know, I think we deserve it before we come in and pull it. I mean, if we come in and get a good number, and $5.6 million is a good number, that's all we're going to have to pay for. You know, maybe that'll be okay. But the thing about it is that's not what our agreement says. And estimated, you know, engineering, survey, and geotech is $900,000. Yeah.
What's your response to that?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor. This project was selected as a several years ago, going through HGAC, and that would have counted the project at 80%, city picking up 20% match. But it was not scheduled until 2025. So, you know, we looked at several different ways to accelerate this project. And as council is well aware, they approved an advanced funding agreement with TxDOT earlier this year that does advance the project to this fall. TxDOT has it on their schedule to let this fall. We do have funding partners with PDC as well as the county. And then TxDOT is also going to pick up the typically 11% of the cost for the construction management, construction inspection, and construction material testing, as TxDOT will be bidding the project and managing the construction. So we do have significant partners on the project. If this is one of the top priorities to really help alleviate some of the traffic issues we've got in and around the State Highway 288 and 518 intersection. And basically the advanced funding agreement for this, just like all of our other advanced funding agreements, state that us as providing the local funds, we provide we estimate based on construction estimates, and then it's based on whatever the bids come in at. And like with any of our AFAs, we are responsible for any costs that exceed what anyone else is matching. So this is very similar to the rest of our advanced planning agreements. We've made that commitment. TxDOT's ramping up the bid project this fall, so we need to move forward with this. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to see that in print for us to be able to discuss that on there. I don't know. As a county, I know Becker, the total authority is backed out completely on there, and so it leaves us in the county.
Vector never had any funds to this project, and we do have a written agreement. We do have an local agreement with the county for their share. We do have a reimbursement for an agreement with PDC for that share as well. Vector was just potentially at one point a mechanism to change orders to their project. When that move forward or work out, we move into a position to have TxDOT pick up the cost of construction.
Well, what is the county's part in this now, Trent?
The county I'm living in for $1.5 million.
That's the same as it's been since the very beginning of this discussion, 1.5 million from them.
So they're getting a county road for 1.5 million. But you know, when you look at it, the engineering costs and geotech and all is estimated at 900,000. And to date, the COs we sold was 450,000, PEDC $750,000, and this other states are underfunding, which I don't know where that come from, was 410,000. So right now, what we spent, according to what we see on here, we spent $1.6 million, and we don't have anything out there. But I'm saying, you know, what was it on the 27th or whatever? We had to come in and go in and appropriate when we changed this and turned it back over to TxDOT for the appropriate for $7 million to TxDOT for their part of the work. And so the advanced funding agreement says that we come in and we pay for design, which we are doing that, and then whatever the construction cost is. And I think that's going to be more than us paying our 20%, because it says right here that the state's not going to chip in anything for
Any other question? Also,
Made that decision to accelerate the project by 5 years, and all of this had been approved for that acceleration. So this is the culmination of those decisions.
Well, I think, you know, from the whole point, we don't even know how much that road's going to cost us, and it's actually going to cost the Pearland residents through their taxes to pay for that road coming through there. I mean, you know, I don't imagine, you know, anything getting them faster to that location coming down from Magnolia Parkway there to go to 518. I don't know, you know, if it's worth the millions of dollars that we can be spending in order to do that. And it's not even going to be, shouldn't be our road. It's not going to be a state road. It's going to be a county road. It's where it's at. And why should we come in and pay that kind of money on it? I think it was a bad deal from the beginning of trying to take the thing away from TxDOT. When TxDOT had it and it said, you know, 2025 to be able to do that, then they had HGAC coming in there and making a contribution part, and we'd have paid 20%. Right now, we're going to pay a lot more than 20%. It was a bad deal from the beginning. And I think we need to take that off of there right now and hold it till we get a better understanding of how much money we're going to have to pay for that.
Quick question for my understanding. Has the cost and the financing components from the various stakeholders, has that been consistent since August 12th when this was on the our CIP?
Trent, you want to confirm that?
I'd have to take a look at the specific numbers. I know that you know, where we are right now, we were working with TxDOT for probably over a year now, maybe close to a year and a half to put together the advanced funding agreement, which these numbers are based on that agreement. So I believe we would have had similar numbers at that point.
Gotcha. Okay. I asked because on August 12th, when we're reviewing that in the CIP, council unanimously approved the decision to spend this money, and then it looks like, I'm looking on the chart, for 288 for northbound frontage, you know, it was the exact same amount that we're talking about today, $5.6 million that occurred at the intent to reimburse discussion, which was October 14th, which also council unanimously agreed to start spending money on this project and that we would pay people back. So I just want to make sure there wasn't any changes since then.
But I still think we need to pull it off and let Epperson to go through and pull up some good numbers so we'll have the numbers. And we can always put it back on there if this is what it is. But I'd like to see the good numbers, how much we're going to be into this project. And because, you know, I don't know where we come up, if Trent, you're still on there, when we came up with the last time that we looked at it, paying TxDOT for their part, we have to pay that up front, which was $7 million that was talked about and tagged into that part of it. So, what would it hurt to pull it off till we come up with a good number?
So our numbers are based off of the current construction estimate that's been TxDOT included as part of the advanced funding agreement with TxDOT. I think one of the things, just for clarity's sake, although it's just on our border, it's actually within the city limits, and it is going to have a significant impact and improvement on the congestion that all of our residents see in the commercial and retail corridor there at 518 and 288. It'll have access points into the Silver Lake Village Shopping Center, which currently basically has one main entrance off of 518 as well as secondary entrances off of County Road 94. And that's, one of the biggest impediments to having good mobility in that area, and this helps alleviate that.
Well, I'm just saying, I think we need to find out what the project is going to cost us, since we're going to be funding it in the project. And if that's the truth that, at Missouri County's only going to put $1.5 million in it, we won't have to eat the rest, whatever it is. And then with TxDOT, and now if we do that, it's not even on the tip for additional funding now, the HGAC. So
Is there feedback?
I don't see where it would hurt pulling this off. What's the emergency of going ahead and doing it till we really know what it's going to cost us?
Feedback?
I just think the project's too important to volley with. We've needed this project for a long time. There's not a single traffic project that's more important and will cost create greater relief for the city of Pearland than this one. Getting the shoppers out of the Target shopping center that want to travel through the 288 and 518 intersection and want to go northbound, facing northbound at that intersection, as opposed to having to face westbound or congest Smith Branch Road. So we've already waited too long to try and get this project going with inaccurate bids and trying to get a partnership with Vectra that just wasn't able to work out because we couldn't get a hold on the numbers. We've got better numbers now, and we need to move forward with it. The delay is only going to cost us more. So
well, I don't think we've got the good numbers on it right now, because we've had two different numbers on it as it is. But Trent, I understand where you're coming from on it. You were probably, a city employee during that time and looking at it. But the thing about it is, I don't see, what other good project's going to come up that we'll just tack on, and it won't be in the city, though. We'll go ahead and do it anyway, and we'll just tax our people that live in the city to do it.
Yeah, I think if you want to pull this item, you can make a motion and see if you can get a second to pull the item. Otherwise, I would like to just move forward if possible.
Yeah, I agree.
Right, well, I'll make that motion to pull that item until we can take a look at it and pull some numbers, and I'm sure Trent can, Epperson can pull the numbers and see where we're at, what we spent today, and where we're at, and who's participating in it. I don't have any doubt in my mind that he can pull that up and get that going and pull it back in. We'll do a separate one.
Okay, any further comment or question by council responding to staff report?
So, Mayor, there's a motion been made and for an amendment, and I don't know if you need to see if there's a second for that.
Okay. Just a little, I'll second Woody's motion.
So here there's an amendment to remove the State Highway 288 northbound frontage road from the CO list.
That's the motion.
Yes.
This is the motion, huh? Okay. We have an amended motion. Is there a second to it?
You need to vote for the amendment. It's not an amended motion yet.
Okay. Madam Secretary, did you catch on that one?
Yes, sir, I did. Councilmember Orlando?
Oh.
I'm sorry, I can hear you. Councilmember Orlando?
No.
Councilmember Carbone?
No.
Councilmember Little?
Yes.
Councilmember Moore?
No.
Councilmember Hernandez?
No.
Councilmember Perez?
No.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
The The motion failed 5-2.
So Mayor, the original
What was that?
motion's on the floor for the as presented for the CO list.
And it failed by the what vote?
5-2.
2. Okay. We now have an amended motion on the table. Would you take a motion on that?
We have the original motion.
Yeah, the original motion, Mayor. Yeah.
Yeah. So now we're in this, staff report on that. Is there any further claim that you want to make?
Nothing to add, sir.
Okay. Madam Secretary, I believe we have an amended motion on the table. And, we're not only amended, but approved.
Okay, Mayor, this would be for the original motion.
The amendment failed, now we're voting on the original motion.
Yeah, we'd like to amend the motion, yes.
Okay. Councilmember Hernandez?
Aye.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Perez?
Aye.
Councilmember Owens? Councilmember Owens?
No.
Councilmember Orlando?
Aye.
Councilmember Carbone?
No.
Councilmember Little?
No.
The motion passes 4-3.
Okay, with that information in the record, we ready to move forward in this a little bit? Well, we move to item number 4, which gives Councilmember Moore a chance to visit with us.
Thanks. Consideration possible action resolution number R2020-881.
Mr. 0081, okay?
Second, Hernandez.
Second by Hernandez. We have motion second on the floor. Staff report.
Thanks, sir. These are shorter-term bonds that are callable. We fully expect that TERS number 2, Shadow Creek, will be in a position to reimburse the city for this, but the only way to get reimbursed is you have to complete the projects and then submit the documentation, get audited, and then wait for the valued and to get in line to get the money back. So there's these 5 projects that are been talked about, as well in the intent to reimburse everything from 2 items for the Shadow Creek Ranch Park and Trail that have to expand the Shadow Creek Ranch sportsplex there, and then the trail completion. Initial money for the Shadow Creek Library with the designs and moving forward on that, and then the parkway lighting, landscaping along there, and finally sidewalk extensions that are new fill-in for those areas. So again, we will get reimbursed for the interest on this, which we also anticipate would be more than the rate that we'll be paying out for this. So that's a positive. But in order to get these and get these projects financed by the TERS instead of just regular general obligation, we need to move forward on these tonight with this. Nothing to add.
Does council have a question or comment based on staff report?
Yeah, Mayor, I'm not a big fan of COs, but I think it's the right tool for this if we are having the reimbursement coming through the TERS.
Okay, any other question or comment from council?
Can we put the frontage road as part of this?
No.
Madam Secretary, I believe we're getting close to them. So, motion second on the floor.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Aye.
Councilmember Perez?
Aye.
Councilmember Owens?
Aye.
Councilmember Orlando?
Aye.
Councilmember Carbone?
Aye.
Councilmember Little?
Aye.
The motion passes 7-0.
7-0. Moving to item number 5 on the agenda. Councilmember Perez. Item on mute.
You're good.
Did I wake up Perez?
Mayor, I'm going to recuse myself from this motion, so I prefer not to present.
Okay. Why don't we move to, you think Perez okay? I would take to Councilmember Little on this one.
Thank you, Mayor. Consideration and possible action, first reading of ordinance 2000M-203. So moved.
Second. This is more.
We have a motion and a second. We'll discussion. Staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a request by the property owner on Dixie Farm for a rezoning from our R1 district to general commercial. And I believe Martin Griggs from our Community Development Department has a overview presentation for this first reading here.
Council, have a question or comments based on staff report for this item?
Mayor, if you want, we can have Martin give a map and orientation for this and background.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Getting PowerPoint up. Get that ready to share, and we'll be good to go.
I'm trying to get my voice back here. What happened to mine?
Okay, you should have first reading of our ordinance. This is the request to rezone property from R1 to GC. General location was at 3302 Dixie Farm Road. The future land use plan showed this as low density residential. And if you remember back at the April 20th joint public hearing, their proposed use was for an animal hospital and retail center. The applicant spoke at the May 4th meeting with the Planning and Zoning Commission. Later on that night, they recommended against the GC classification as proposed with a vote of 0-6. So this will require a supermajority vote to approve. Part of that discussion was about whether or not a lower classification would work. Just to remind you, the animal hospital use, which was their primary need for the rezoning, is allowed by right within the general commercial and is allowed by a conditional use permit within the general business. At the May 4th meeting, the applicant stated that any designation less than GC would not meet their needs. This was their proposed development plan that they submitted. It is not a part of the ordinance. And then this is the map of the area. Again, with the 0-6 recommendation, not for general commercial, it will require a supermajority vote should council choose to approve. Mr. Mayor, that completes my staff report.
Does the council have any question or comment further on this item from your perspective?
Yes, Mayor. Martin, can you go back to your first slide? So they applied saying we want we're proposing an animal hospital and retail center. If you go to the second slide, they can get the animal hospital and retail center in GB. It just requires an additional CUP. Is that correct?
Correct.
So they're saying they're saying we want to develop it. We're saying you can't have GC, but GB will work. And then they turn around and say, oh no, we can't take anything less than GC.
That was explained to them at the May 4th P&Z discussion, and that's why I included that statement within the presentation tonight.
So either they don't understand or they're trying to just get it changed and then flip the property. I don't, that doesn't make any sense at all to me. And I mean, we've been misled a few times before, and it seems like that was the plan this time. So I think, I mean, I'm going to vote it down, and that kills your supermajority. And if they want to come back and go for GB, I'd certainly support it. But I'm kind of twisted up by the fact that we're trying to work with both the neighboring landowners and the property owner, and yet they're not working with us. And that, I mean, right across or in that same vicinity, we did the same thing to the property that abuts Home Depot. And we took it down to NS, and then we were able to work through the CUP to work with the neighboring property owners to get something that fits. So I don't know. I'm frustrated. I'm going to vote no. And you know, hopefully they hear these comments and they'll go back through the process if that was truly their intent.
Yeah, I'm inclined to be the same way. They propose an animal hospital, but yet they want to do all this extra retail in there. So if they're saying that the zoning's not going to work, that just makes me wonder, well, what are they trying to put in there? And then I have concerns on the buffering with the neighbors that are there. So yeah, I'm not going to be in favor of this either.
Is the applicant on the call?
I do not, any comments from council, I'm sorry.
I do not believe anybody's signed up to speak on behalf of the property owner.
Gotcha. I mean, so just, we expressed our frustrations at the joint public hearing that the applicant didn't attend, that we had questions that we'd like to cover with them, that they haven't attended this. We need 6 people. It's evident that's not going to happen. I think we should just move this to a vote.
What, any other comments from council on this item?
I mean, I guess this sounds harsh, and I don't want to come off that way, but I guess staff, am I misinterpreting anything? I mean, if there's a shadow of a doubt that we need to, I guess, table it to give them a chance to respond, but it's awful frustrating from this point. And is there anything else you want to add before we kill it?
We did discuss.
I'm not inclined to table it due to the fact that the applicants had 2 opportunities to come before council and has failed to do so either time. And say we vote on it, I don't think it's going to be passed.
We got no further doubts about this item. I think a table would be good.
No, Mayor, I don't think we want to table it. I think we're ready to vote on it. Are your questions answered, Tony?
I think Martin was fixing to jump in.
I was just going to explain that we did discuss the different zoning districts and the uses allowed within, and he made it quite evident at the May 4th that GC was all that he was interested in.
All right. Thank you.
I'm ready to vote.
You ready to vote? Okay, Madam Secretary, next vote. Open second on the floor here.
Councilmember Little?
No.
Councilmember Moore?
No.
Councilmember Hernandez?
No.
Councilmember Perez?
I would abstain.
Oh. Councilmember Owens?
Aye.
Councilmember Orlando?
No.
Councilmember Carbone?
No.
Motion passes, I'm sorry, the motion fails 5-1.
So it did not pass by a supermajority.
It failed 5-1.
Okay, by stating 5-1, it does not pass, we do not need to have a supermajority on it. So, okay. That information in the record. Let me flip my agenda over here. Moving to new business item number 6. Rick Perez, I'm going to give you a chance to do your job here. Item number 6.
Thank you, Mayor. Consideration possible action resolution R 2020-90, so moved.
Second, it's more.
We have a motion and a second. What the staff report?
So we are in the renewal period for our wind insurance. We continue to do our best to inventory facilities and make sure that we've got a good list. Worked with our broker vendor and come back with this recommendation for going with AmRisk. That is an increase from the prior year, but I think we can all understand the history of that and so forth. And this is for the period upcoming from May 26th, later this weekend through 2021. So $620,000 will run through the special revenue fund. Nothing to add, sir.
Good. Council, have any question or comment based on that good staff report? Don't hear anybody. I am speaking, already. Any comments from council? Okay. Madam Secretary, I believe we got a motion second on the floor here then.
Councilmember Perez?
Aye.
Councilmember Owens?
Aye.
Councilmember Orlando?
Aye.
Councilmember Carbone?
Aye.
Councilmember Little?
Aye.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, moving to item number 7. Councilman Orlando, you've been kind of quiet over there.
All right. Consideration and possible action resolution number R 2020-93. So moved.
Second, more.
We have a motion and a second. We're in discussion. Staff report.
Thanks, sir. This is fits in with one of the prior items that we financing, but city has an opportunity. This has been long in the works to city went through and prioritized different school areas, and through this federal grant program, where there were gaps and opportunities for filling in sidewalks that would get kids primarily safe to and from those schools on the public right of way. And so from those prioritizations, went through a ranking, and we're now ready to enter into this advanced funding agreement with state of Texas so that our local $1.1 million would leverage about $2.5 million of outside federal monies that are administered through HJC and would fill the sidewalk improvements that have been identified. So obviously, advanced funding agreement. There's more work to be done, but this definitely moves the ball down the field farther to realize the sidewalks we've talked about. Nothing to answer.
Okay, does council have any comments or concerns about the staff report?
Mayor, I only have one. Trent, you may be able to help me. The redesign and reconstruction of the traffic circle at McCartan and Pearland Parkway, that is not including any of the existing sidewalks, correct? So if we build this sidewalk along that empty corridor on the south end of that traffic circle, we're not going to be tearing it out in a year or two, right?
No, I believe we've actually got some of those sidewalks in the traffic circle project, and if whatever we build in there, we'll make sure it's going to be permanent and we won't be tearing it out.
Okay.
I think it's a great safety issue for our school kids. Any other question or comment from council?
Yep, Mayor, just to clarify, I mean, I look at the maps and the schools, and although Pearland ISD is the largest in our city, and we've got Alvin ISD, can we hit on I guess why we don't have any infrastructure going on around there? Is that due to the TERS?
So I'll start and then Trent can correct or clarify. We'd ask the same things. These stem from that engineering review that was looked at the priorities back then, and so we're kind of beholden to that. And as you sort of alluded to, there is going to be a lot of TERS work that's going to fill in independently around some of the Alvin ISD schools in the city of Pearland. So we're going to be addressing those with other means, but we're committed to following that prioritization in order to stay compliant with this grant program.
Mm. When will we be able to look at the Alvin ISD portion?
So we looked at that originally, and we do have walks that are included with the TERS reimbursements and so forth. So there's some other ones that are in the works. Trent, you know where we're at with that off the top of your head?
Sure. So the sidewalk extension project in the TERS area is one of the projects that was included in some of the funding that was approved earlier tonight. And Board of Engineering has a design contract that they're preparing to bring to you here within the next couple of months to start the design on that work so that we can start filling some of those gaps and making those connections where necessary. And just kind of jump back to what Mr. Henson mentioned, the original Safe Routes to School study did take a look at a couple of Alvin ISD schools or Pearland ISD schools. They were then ranked based on the most effective projects that impacted and helped the largest number of students, the biggest areas of safety concerns in the walking schools. So that's how they were prioritized originally, and now we do have an alternate funding source to address them out in the Alvin ISD areas.
Yeah, so that was looked at last year in Alvin ISD?
It was several years ago that the prioritization was done.
Yeah, I don't know that that prioritization that we did is probably accurate anymore.
And we're not using that prioritization with the schools in Alvin ISD. What we're looking at out there is within the entirety of TERS, where do we need connections? Where do we need to have sidewalks on the other side of the road where it's only one side right now that's not conducive to walking to school? So that's a real holistic approach in the TERS area to address some of the sidewalk issues that have been brought to our attention over the years, as well as through any interactions with Alvin ISD and the parents and students that walk to school out there. So it's comprehensive. It does not just go back to what was originally looked at several years ago.
Okay, thank you. So we'll be seeing that soon?
Yes, sir. I believe we've got the design contract for that. We'll bring that to you in June.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Any other questions or comments? I think it's a great idea. I like it the way it's set up. Madam Secretary, I think we've got a motion second on the floor here for you.
Councilmember Orlando? Councilmember Orlando?
Aye.
Councilmember Carbone?
Aye.
Councilmember Little?
Aye.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Aye.
Councilmember Perez?
Aye.
And Councilmember Owens?
Aye.
The motion passes 7-0.
What was the number?
The motion passes 7-0.
7-0, okay?
Yes, sir.
That's a good way to wind up a public hearing and a good council agenda. Moving in our agenda to item number 10, Mayor Council issues for council consideration and discussion. And there were none submitted for it, and I think we're lucky for that reason. Item 11 is other business. There is none. Item 12, agenda at 7:40 p.m. Thank all of you guys for a good job. I think it's some work well done.
9